The unemployment office in Billings smelled like defeat and disinfectant. Travis Garrett sat in a plastic chair designed to make people uncomfortable, watching the second hand crawl around the wall clock like it was moving through molasses. 46 years old and waiting to be told he didn't qualify for benefits. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd paid into the system for 28 years, and now the system had a dozen reasons why it couldn't pay him back. The clerk called his name. She was maybe 30, competent looking, the kind of person who'd learned to deliver bad news without making eye contact. Travis stood, feeling every one of those 46 years in his knees, in his lower back, in the calluses on his hands that had nothing left to grip. 5 minutes later, he was back outside in the October cold. Denied. Insufficient work history in the previous 18 months. They were very sorry. There were resources available if he needed assistance finding new employment. The pamphlets she'd handed him were already in the trash can by the time he reached his truck. The Ford F-150 had 200,000 miles on it and a transmission that shuddered when it shifted into third gear. Travis sat behind the wheel, hands resting on the cracked leather, looking at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The face looking back was weathered, lined around the eyes, gray starting to show in the stubble he hadn't bothered to shave in 3 days. His father's face, more or less. His father, who'd worked construction for 40 years and died 6 months after retirement, like his body had only been holding on long enough to collect one pension check. Travis pulled out his phone. The banking app showed exactly what he knew it would show. Checking account $5,412, savings account 0, credit cards maxed. The $5,000 was supposed to be Lily's college fund, was supposed to be. Past tense felt appropriate now. Divorce finalized 4 years ago. Monthly support payments $800. Half the debt they'd accumulated together, another $600 a month. Lawyer fees from the divorce, still paying those off at $250 a month. Rent on the apartment $900. Truck payment, insurance, utilities, food. The math didn't work. Hadn't worked for 2 years. He'd been burning through savings, then burning through credit, then burning through the college fund he'd promised Lily when she was born. Now there was nothing left to burn. His phone buzzed, text from his ex-wife. Lily wants to know if you're coming to her concert Friday. Let me know so I can tell her. Travis stared at the message. The concert was in Bozeman, 2 hours away. Gas would cost $40 round trip. Lily wouldn't talk to him anyway. Hadn't really talked to him in 6 months, not since he'd missed her birthday because he'd taken a job 3 hours south that he couldn't afford to turn down. When he'd finally called her 2 days late, she'd been polite, distant. The way you talk to someone you're obligated to acknowledge but don't particularly want to know. He typed back, not sure yet, work situation complicated. Work situation. That was one way to put it. The last masonry contract had fallen through when the developer found a crew willing to work for half Travis's rate. Immigrant labor, most likely. Travis had nothing against immigrants. Hell, half the best masons he'd ever worked with had learned the trade in Mexico or Guatemala, countries where stonework was still a craft instead of a cost to be minimized. But they were young and desperate and willing to work cheap. And Travis was old and expensive, and not desperate enough yet to compromise on the quality of his work. Not yet. His phone buzzed again. Not a text this time. Email notification. The sender was a law firm in Forsyth he'd never heard of. Subject line, estate of Raymond Carlisle, deceased. Travis almost deleted it as spam, but something made him open it. The email was formal, dense with legal language, but the essential message was simple. Raymond Carlisle had died in 2010. The estate had been in probate for 13 years due to complications. The deceased had left property to be distributed according to specific criteria outlined in the will. Travis Garrett met those criteria. If he was interested in claiming the inheritance, He needed to contact the firm within 30 days. There was a phone number. Travis called it. A woman answered on the second ring, professional voice, decades of practice turning legal complexity into plain English. Her name was Mrs. Fletcher. She'd been Raymond Carlisle's attorney for 20 years. She was sorry for the delay in reaching out. The estate had been complicated. "What exactly did Mr. Carlisle leave me?" Travis asked. 35 acres in Powder River County. Ranch house, barn, outbuildings. The property is unoccupied. Has been since Mr. Carlisle's death. "And what's it worth?" A pause. "In its current condition, not much. The house is condemned. No utilities. Access is via unimproved road. The county assessed value is around $15,000, but realistically, you'd be lucky to get $8. "Then why leave it to me? I didn't know Raymond Carlisle." "Mr. Carlisle's will specify that the property should go to someone meeting particular criteria. A tradesman with stonework skills, age 40 to 50, in need of a second chance. Your name came up in our search. You filed for bankruptcy protection last year, correct?" Travis felt something cold settle in his chest. "That's public record." "It is. Mr. Carlisle wanted someone who understood what it meant to start over with nothing. Someone who worked with their hands. Someone who might appreciate what he built there." "What did he build?" "That's something you'd need to see for yourself. But I should mention the inheritance isn't free. There are back taxes, transfer fees, legal costs. It comes to $4,200. Travis laughed, couldn't help it. "So I have to pay $4,000 to inherit property worth $8,000. That's quite a deal." "I understand it seems unusual, but Mr. Carlisle was very specific. He wanted someone willing to invest in the place. Someone who wouldn't just turn around and sell it for quick cash." Travis was quiet. Outside the truck window, Billings went about its business. People with jobs, with futures that extended past next week's rent. The wind came down off the mountains, rattling the truck's windows, carrying the smell of coming winter. "Can I see it before I decide?" "Of course. I can email you directions, but Mr. Garrett, I should be clear. This property is rough, very rough. I don't want you driving all the way out there expecting something it's not." "Ma'am, I'm sitting in a truck with 200,000 miles, looking at a bank account that says I have enough money to survive maybe 3 more months if I'm lucky and don't eat much. Rough is about all I can afford." He could hear the smile in her voice when she responded, "I'll send you those directions." The drive from Billings to Forsyth took just over 2 hours. Highway 94 cut east through country that got drier and emptier the farther you went. This was coal country, or had been. The mines were closing now, the big companies pulling out, leaving towns that had sprung up around extraction to figure out what came next. A lot of them weren't figuring it out. Travis had looked up Raymond Carlisle online during a gas stop. There wasn't much. An obituary from the Forsyth newspaper, brief and factual. Raymond Carlisle, 63, died of heart failure. Lifelong resident of Powder River County. No surviving family. Services private. In lieu of flowers, donations could be made to the county library. That was it. No mention of what the man had done for a living. No list of accomplishments. No grieving relatives sharing memories. Just a name, some dates, and the kind of sparse details that suggested a life lived quietly and ended alone. The directions Mrs. Fletcher had sent took Travis off the highway onto a county road, then onto a gravel track that wound through hills covered in sagebrush and prairie grass gone gold with autumn. The land rolled and folded, breaks and coulees cut by seasonal runoff, the kind of country that looked empty but wasn't. Antelope watched his truck pass. A hawk rode thermals overhead. In the distance, the Bighorn Mountains made a serrated line against the sky. The ranch was at the end of a two-track road that hadn't seen maintenance in years. Travis's truck bounced through ruts, scraping bottom twice before the road opened into a clearing. He stopped the truck and sat there, looking at what Raymond Carlisle had left him. The house was small, maybe 20 by 30 feet, built from logs that had weathered to silver gray. The roof had partially collapsed on the north side. Windows were broken or missing entirely. The porch sagged like a broken promise. Behind the house, a barn leaned at an angle that suggested it was in an ongoing argument with gravity. Outbuildings in various states of decay dotted the property. Everything looked abandoned, forgotten, claimed by time and weather. Except for one thing. Travis climbed out of the truck, walked to the house, and crouched down to examine the foundation. It was stone. River rock laid in coursed rubble style, each stone selected for size and shape, fitted together with lime mortar that had somehow survived decades of freeze-thaw cycles. The corners were plumb. The top course was level. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Travis ran his hand over the stonework. Whoever built this foundation knew what they were doing. More than knew. This was the work of someone who understood stone not just as material but as art. Someone who'd taken time to do it right even though no one would see it once the house was finished. Someone who built things to last. Travis stood, looking at the collapsed roof, the broken windows, the general air of abandonment, and then back down at the perfect foundation. Something didn't match. This kind of craftsmanship didn't come from someone who'd let everything else fall apart. He walked the property. The barn was in worse shape than the house, but it had a workshop attached to the back, and when Travis pushed open the door, he found something unexpected. The workshop was dusty, full of spiderwebs and mouse droppings, but it was organized. Tools hung on pegboards, each one outlined in faded marker so you'd know exactly where it belonged. A workbench ran along one wall, scarred and stained but solid. Shelves held mason jars filled with screws and nails, sorted by size. A vise mounted on the bench still turned smoothly when Travis tested it. On the shelves above the workbench, arranged in chronological order, were journals, dozens of them, each spine labeled with years in careful handwriting. Travis pulled down the first one. The leather cover was worn soft with handling. Inside, the pages were filled with small, precise writing. The first entry was dated July 1968. Bought this land today, 35 acres for $900. The bank thought I was wasting my money, probably right, but I need somewhere to start over, somewhere to build something that matters. Margaret says I'm running away from my problems. Maybe I am, but sometimes you have to run towards something new before you can face what you left behind. Travis kept reading. The light was fading, so he carried the journal outside, sat on the porch steps, and read as the sun dropped toward the mountains. The entries detailed the construction of the cabin, how Raymond had worked alone, cutting logs from the property, dragging them with a borrowed horse, fitting them together piece by piece. How he'd gathered river rock from the creek bed, spending weeks selecting just the right stones for the foundation. How he'd mixed mortar by hand, learning through trial and error what ratios worked best in Montana's climate. The writing was thoughtful, almost poetic at times, but always grounded in practical details. How to square a foundation on sloping ground, the best angle for solar gain, where to position windows to catch morning light. Raymond Carlisle had built this place himself, with his own hands, learning as he went, documenting everything with the precision of someone who believed the knowledge mattered. Travis read until it was too dark to see the pages. Then he sat in the darkness, listening to the wind move through the grass, thinking about the man who'd lived here and died here, and left this place to a stranger who met some criteria outlined in a will. The night was cold. Travis had a sleeping bag in the truck. He spread it out on the workshop floor near the workbench, surrounded by Raymond Carlisle's tools and journals. It wasn't comfortable, but it was his, or would be once he paid the $4,200 he didn't have. He fell asleep thinking about that foundation, about the care someone had taken to build it right, about what it meant to start with nothing and construct something meant to last. Morning came cold and bright. Travis woke stiff, his back complaining about the hard floor. He was too old for this. Too old to be sleeping in abandoned workshops, too old to be starting over, too old for a lot of things. But here he was anyway. He spent the morning exploring. The property had a seasonal creek running through the north section, dry now but you could see where water flowed in spring. There were old corrals, fence posts rotted off at ground level, the skeleton of what might have been a chicken coop, evidence of a life lived, then left behind. Around 10, Travis heard an engine. A truck was coming up the 2-track, moving slow, kicking up dust. It was an old Chevy, probably 70s vintage, faded red paint and a rancher's truck bed full of the accumulated tools of rural life. Fence posts, wire, a toolbox, spare tire. The truck stopped near Travis's Ford. A man climbed out, moving with the careful deliberation of someone in his 70s who'd spent a lifetime doing physical work and felt every year of it. He was lean, weathered, wearing Wranglers and a canvas jacket and a hat that had seen better decades. "You must be the fellow who bought Ray's place," the man said. His voice was rough, shaped by wind and cigarettes and years of not wasting words. "Travis Garrett." "Hank Kimball, I ranch about 3 miles that way." He pointed vaguely northeast. "Saw smoke from your chimney last night, figured I'd come check, make sure you weren't just some squatter." "No smoke, I slept in the workshop." Hank looked at him with new assessment. "Workshop still standing, that's something. Most everything else has gone to hell." "Foundation's solid." "Ray built that, did all the stonework himself. Man was an artist with rock. Could look at a pile of stones and see exactly how they'd fit together. Best mason I ever knew, and I've known a few." Travis felt something shift in his chest. "You knew Raymond Carlisle." 40 years, best friend I ever had." Hank walked over to the house, looked at the sagging porch, the collapsed roof. "Breaks my heart seeing it like this. Ray loved this place, poured everything he had into it, but at the end he was alone, no family, no one to leave it to. When he died, took us 3 days to find him. Heart attack right there in the house. By the time I got to him, he'd been gone 72 hours. The wind moved through the grass. Somewhere a meadowlark called. The attorney said he left specific instructions about who should inherit." Hank nodded. "Ray was particular about things, wanted someone who'd appreciate what he built, someone who worked with their hands, someone who understood what it meant to try to make something that mattered." "What did he make here, besides the house?" Hank was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You got time for a story?" They sat on the tailgate of Hank's truck. The old rancher pulled out a thermos, poured coffee into 2 tin cups, handed one to Travis. The coffee was strong enough to strip paint, but it was hot, and the morning was cold, and Travis was grateful. "Ray bought this place in '68, Hank said, right after his wife left him. He'd been working for the county, doing road maintenance, but his heart wasn't in it. He wanted to ranch, wanted to build something with his own hands. So he bought this land for almost nothing and started over." Hank sipped his coffee. "We became friends. I was ranching next door, newlywed, trying to figure it all out. Ray helped me, taught me things about working this land, how to read weather, where to dig a well. He was smart, real smart. Not book smart necessarily, but smart about how things worked. He had a daughter, Margaret. She was maybe 10 when Ray bought this place. Used to help him on weekends when she'd visit. Ray's ex-wife had custody, but Margaret would come out here and Ray would teach her the same things he taught me. How to work, how to build, how to see solutions instead of just problems. Travis watched Hank's face. There was pain there, old and deep. Then Ray's ex-wife died, cancer, early 80s. Margaret was maybe 16. She came to live with Ray full-time, and for a couple years it was good. They were close. Ray was so proud of her. Smart as hell, that girl, sharp like her father. But then she turned 18 and left. Went to college in Bozeman. Changed her last name to her mother's maiden name, Whitfield. Never came back. Never called. Ray tried to reach out, but she cut him off completely. Why? Hank shrugged. Ray never said exactly, but I got the sense Margaret blamed him for the divorce, for her mother's hard life after. Ray had been chasing dreams instead of making steady money. His ex-wife struggled. Margaret saw that struggle, decided her father was selfish, decided she'd never be like him. Ray took it hard, threw himself into projects. That's when he started working on the water system. Travis set down his coffee cup. Water system. This whole region, it's dry. Gets maybe 12 inches of rain a year. If you want to ranch, you need water, and the only reliable sources are underground wells or seasonal creeks. Problem is, drilling wells costs $30,000–$40,000, and the creeks are controlled by water rights that got bought up by companies. Hank pointed toward the mountains. About 10 years ago, a woman named Maggie Whitfield started buying up ranches in this valley. Turned out Maggie Whitfield was Margaret Carlisle, Ray's daughter. She'd made money in Billings, real estate development, came back here and started buying land. Travis felt the pieces starting to connect. She bought 6 ranches in 3 years, bought the water rights to 3 major creeks. Then she started charging the rest of us for water access. $800 a month for trucked water. If you couldn't pay, you couldn't ranch. Simple as that. Ray fought her, tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't even talk to him, so he did what he always did. He tried to solve the problem another way. Hank stood, gestured for Travis to follow. They walked to the north edge of the property, where the seasonal creek cut through a small ravine. Hank pointed to a spot where the land dropped about 15 feet over a rocky outcrop. Ray figured out you could use gravity and pressure to pump water uphill without any electricity. Called it a hydraulic ram pump. Old technology, been around since the 1800s, but Ray refined it. Spent 20 years designing a system that could take water from this creek, pump it uphill to a storage tank, then gravity feed it to multiple properties. No power needed, no monthly costs, just maintenance. Travis looked at the terrain, trying to visualize it. Ray built a prototype, got it working, proved the concept. Then he mapped out a network that could serve 6 ranches, including mine. Would have freed all of us from Maggie's water monopoly. Would have cost maybe $12,000 total to build. Split 6 ways, that's $2,000 per ranch. What happened? Ray died. Heart attack, alone in his house. The plans died with him. We looked for blueprints, technical drawings, anything we could use to finish what he started. But we never found them. Figured they were lost or destroyed. Hank looked at Travis. That workshop you slept in last night, you see any journals? Shelves full of them. Then maybe they're not lost after all. They spent the next hour in the workshop. Travis pulled down journals while Hank paged through them looking for specific entries. They found them in the volumes from the 2000s. Detailed drawings, calculations, parts lists, testing notes, everything needed to build Raymond Carlisle's water system. This is it, Hank said quietly. This is what Ray was working on when he died. Travis studied the blueprints. Even with his limited understanding of hydraulics, he could see the elegance of the design. The pump used falling water to create pressure that forced a portion of that water uphill through delivery pipes. The rest cycled back to start the process again. No external power, no moving parts except the valves, brilliant in its simplicity. Could it still be built? Travis asked. If these plans are accurate, yeah. Ray tested the prototype for years. He knew it worked, just needed people willing to build it. How much would it cost now? Materials probably 16,000. Split 6 ways, still affordable. The labor we could do ourselves. Travis was quiet. Hank watched him. You thinking about staying? The old rancher asked. I don't know what I'm thinking. I came here because I had nowhere else to go. I've got maybe enough money to pay the inheritance fees and survive 3 months if I'm careful. After that, I'm broke. What are you good at? Masonry, stonework. I've been laying brick and stone for 28 years. Hank smiled. Then you and Ray would have gotten along just fine. That afternoon, after Hank left, Travis sat in the workshop and called the attorney. He told Mrs. Fletcher he wanted to accept the inheritance. She said she'd prepare the paperwork. The fees would be $4,200 exactly. He could wire the money to the firm's trust account. Travis hung up and looked at his bank balance. $5,412. After paying the fees, he'd have $1,200 left. Maybe 3 months of survival if he was lucky and didn't eat much and the truck didn't break down. He was betting everything on a condemned house and 35 acres of sagebrush and the ghost of a man who died alone trying to build something that mattered. His phone buzzed, text from Lily. Mom says you're not coming to my concert, whatever. Travis stared at the message, typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally wrote, I'm sorry, work situation is complicated. The same excuse he'd been using for 2 years. The same distance that had opened between them, one missed event at a time. Lily was 17 now. 1 more year and she'd be gone to college, assuming Travis could figure out how to pay for it, which he couldn't. Which meant she'd probably take loans or her stepfather would pay, and either way Travis would be the father who couldn't provide. He put the phone away and picked up Raymond Carlisle's journal. Read about a man who'd built a foundation meant to last 200 years and died alone, estranged from his daughter, believing he'd failed at everything that mattered. Travis understood that feeling in his bones. 3 days later, the paperwork was finalized. Travis Garrett owned 35 acres in Powder River County. The property was his. The house was his. The workshop, the tools, the journals, the collapsed barn and the sagging outbuildings, and the foundation built by a man who understood that craft was a kind of prayer. It was all his. Travis spent those 3 days cleaning the workshop, organizing tools, reading journals. Raymond Carlisle's life unfolded in careful handwriting. The entries detailed projects, experiments, failures, small victories. But between the technical notes were glimpses of loneliness, regret, hope that maybe the next design would work, maybe the next system would prove he'd been right all along. One entry stopped Travis cold. It was dated March 2009. Margaret called today, first time in 23 years. She's buying the Henderson Ranch. Asked if I wanted to sell this place to her. I said no. She said I was being stubborn. Said I was wasting my life on impossible projects while the world moved on without me. Maybe she's right, but I can't stop now. If I can finish the water system, prove it works, maybe she'll see I wasn't crazy. Maybe she'll understand I was trying to build something good. The next entry was 6 months later. Margaret's company bought water rights to Deer Creek. She's charging people $800 a month for access. I tried to call her. She won't answer. I don't understand how she became this. How the girl who used to help me lay stone turned into someone who profits from other people's struggle. The journal entries became more sporadic after that. The handwriting shakier. Less about technical details, more about regret and time running out. The last entry was dated April 2010. The water system is finished. Design complete, tested, ready to build. But I'm dying. Heart failure. 6 months, maybe less. I need to make sure this knowledge doesn't die with me. I need to find someone who will finish what I started. Someone who understands that some things matter more than money. Someone who needs a second chance the way I needed one 40 years ago. Travis closed the journal, sat in the quiet workshop as afternoon light slanted through dirty windows. Outside, the wind moved through the grass. The same wind that had blown across this land for 10,000 years. The same wind that would keep blowing long after Travis was gone. His phone rang. Lily, Travis almost didn't answer, but he did. Dad. Hey, sweetheart. A pause. I wanted to apologize for being short with you. Mom said you're dealing with work stuff. Yeah, it's complicated. You always say that. Travis looked around the workshop, at the tools, at the journals, at the blueprints spread across the workbench. I bought some land in Montana. I'm fixing it up. Silence on the other end, then like a house. A ranch, 35 acres. The house is pretty rough, but it's mine. Mom says you lost your job. I did, but I'm trying to start over, build something different. Another pause. Can I see it? The question surprised him. You want to? I don't know, maybe. I mean, you're always saying work is complicated and you can't make it to things. I just want to see what you're actually doing. Travis felt something crack open in his chest. Yeah, you can visit. It's pretty basic out here. No electricity, no running water. But if you want to see it, I'd like that. Okay, maybe next weekend. I'll be here. After they hung up, Travis sat for a long time holding the phone. Lily wanted to visit. His daughter, who'd been distant for months, wanted to see what he was doing. Maybe because she was curious. Maybe because she didn't believe him, but she was willing to come. That had to mean something. Travis spent the next week preparing. He patched the worst holes in the roof with salvaged tin, cleared debris from the main room, got the wood stove working so there'd be heat. It wasn't much, but it was better than it had been. He also spent hours studying Raymond's blueprints. The water system was complex but logical. Intake pipes from the creek, a pump chamber where falling water created pressure, delivery pipes running uphill to storage tanks, distribution lines to individual properties. Everything designed with the precision of someone who understood that small errors compound into large failures. Saturday morning, Lily arrived. Travis saw her car coming up the 2-track, a little Honda her mother had bought her for her 17th birthday. He walked out to meet her, suddenly nervous in a way he hadn't been nervous in years. She climbed out of the car, looking around at the ranch with an expression Travis couldn't quite read. Lily was 17 but looked older, tall like her mother, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore jeans and a University of Montana sweatshirt and hiking boots that looked new. "This is it," she said. "This is it." She walked toward the house, stopped at the porch steps. "Dad, this place is falling apart. It needs work. It needs a bulldozer." Travis almost smiled. The foundation's solid. Lily crouched down, examining the stonework the way Travis had that first day. She ran her hand over the river rock, tracing the mortar joints. This is really good work. The man who built it was a master mason. The one who died. Raymond Carlisle. He lived here for 42 years, built everything himself. Lily stood, looked at the sagging roof, the broken windows. Why would someone who could do this, she pointed at the foundation, let everything else fall apart? I think he got old, got sick, ran out of time. They walked the property. Travis showed her the workshop, the journals, the blueprints. Lily was quiet at first, but gradually she started asking questions. What was a hydraulic ram pump? How did it work? Why did Raymond think it mattered? Travis explained as best he could. About the water crisis. About Maggie Whitfield buying up ranches and controlling water rights. About Raymond's attempt to build a system that would free people from that control. Lily picked up one of the journals, paged through it carefully. This is his handwriting. 40 years worth. She read for a while, then looked up at Travis. He had a daughter. Yeah. And she's the one who's charging everyone for water. That's right. That's messed up. They spent the afternoon in the workshop. Travis showed Lily how the pump system was supposed to work, using the blueprints as a guide. She was good with math, better than Travis, and she started doing calculations, checking Raymond's work, nodding as she confirmed the ratios. This could actually work, she said. Hank Kimball thinks so. He knew Raymond, says the prototype worked fine. Are you going to build it? Travis looked at his daughter. I don't know. It would cost money I don't have, time I don't have, skills I'm not sure I have. But you're thinking about it. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Lily was quiet, then she said, What's Greg like? The question threw Travis. Greg was Lily's stepfather, successful, stable, everything Travis wasn't. I don't know him well, seems like a good guy. He's fine, he's nice to me, buys me things, but he's not really interested in anything except making money and playing golf. Mom's happy with him, I think, but they don't build anything together, they just buy things. Travis didn't know what to say to that. Lily kept reading the journal. Raymond's daughter blamed him for being selfish, for chasing dreams instead of being practical. But she became practical and it turned her into someone who hurts people, which is worse. I don't think there's a simple answer to that. You left Mom because you weren't happy. She says you were always chasing the next job, never satisfied. That sounds kind of like Raymond. Travis felt the accusation but heard the question underneath it. I left because we made each other miserable. And yeah, I was always working, always trying to prove I could provide. But the more I worked, the less I was home, and the less I was home, the worse things got. Your mom deserved better. You deserved better. Do you regret it, leaving? I regret how much it hurt you. I regret not being there for things that mattered, but staying would have been worse, for everyone. They sat in the workshop as the afternoon light faded. Outside, the wind picked up, making the old barn creak. Can I help? Lily asked. Help with what? Fixing this place, building the water thing, whatever you're doing here. Travis looked at his daughter. You have school, college applications, your whole life is in Billings. I know, but I could come on weekends, learn how to do this stuff. Mom and Greg are always talking about my future like it's something that happens in an office. Maybe I want to know how to build things, how to make things that last. Something shifted in Travis's chest. His daughter, who'd been distant for months, was offering to help, was choosing to be here. He didn't deserve it, but he wasn't going to refuse it. Okay, he said, you can help. They worked until dark. Travis taught Lily basic stonework, showing her how to mix mortar, how to select stones that would fit together, how to tap them into place without breaking them. She was patient, methodical, absorbing the knowledge the way Raymond Carlisle must have absorbed it 40 years ago. That night they ate canned soup heated on the wood stove. Lily slept in the workshop on a cot Travis had bought in town. In the morning, before she left, she stood looking at the ranch with different eyes. This could be something, she said. Could be. Raymond died thinking he failed, but he didn't fail. He just needed someone to finish it. After Lily drove away, Travis went back to the workshop. He pulled down Raymond's last journal, the one from 2010, and found an entry he'd skimmed before but not really read. The entry was dated March 2010, written in shaky handwriting that suggested Raymond's health was already failing. To whoever buys this place, if you're reading this, you needed somewhere to start over. Me too. I bought this land in 1966 with my last $900 running from my own failures. Spent my life trying to build something that mattered, forgot to build relationship with my daughter. She became everything I fought against. Don't make my mistake. The water system works. I tested it. Plans are complete. But I'm dying. Heart failure. 6 months maybe. Finish it. Not for me. For the people I'm leaving behind. And call your daughter, trust me on that. There was more. A separate page, folded and tucked into the back of the journal. Travis unfolded it. If you've gotten this far, you understand what I was trying to do. The water system isn't just about pumping water, it's about independence, about showing people they don't have to depend on systems designed to extract money from them. I've left you everything you need. The tools, the knowledge, the land, but you have to want it, you have to be willing to do the work. Not because it's profitable, but because it's right. That's the test. That's why I chose someone broke and desperate. Because someone with money and options might not understand what this means, but someone with nothing, someone starting over, they might. They might see that some things matter more than profit. Some legacies are worth more than money. Finish what I started, make it mean something. And don't let anyone tell you it's impossible. I proved it works. Now prove it matters. It was signed Raymond Carlisle. Below the signature, a final line. The water still flows, even when we're gone. Make sure it flows for those who come after. Travis folded the letter carefully, put it back in the journal. Outside, the sun was setting over the Bighorn Mountains. The wind moved through the grass, constant and patient. The foundation Raymond had built sat solid, waiting for walls that would never collapse, for a roof that would shelter whoever came next. Travis walked to the north edge of the property, to the place where the seasonal creek dropped 15 feet over rock. He could see it now, the way Raymond must have seen it. The pump station here, the storage tank on the ridge, the distribution lines running to each ranch, water flowing uphill, powered by nothing but gravity and human ingenuity. It was possible. Raymond had proved that. The question was whether Travis had the courage to believe it, whether he had the strength to start something he might not finish, whether he was willing to bet his last dollar on a dead man's dream. He looked at his hands. They were weathered, scarred from decades of working with stone. His father's hands, Raymond's hands, hands that built things meant to last. Travis made his decision. He was going to finish what Raymond Carlisle had started. He was going to build the water system. He was going to prove that some things mattered more than money. And he was going to do it with his daughter, teaching her the way he'd been taught, the way Raymond had taught himself, the way knowledge moved from one generation to the next when people cared enough to pass it on. The sun dropped below the mountains. Stars emerged in the darkening sky. Travis walked back to the workshop, his home now, surrounded by tools and journals and blueprints left by a stranger who'd believed in second chances. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The first 2 weeks at the ranch, Travis lived like a monk. Up at dawn, coffee boiled on the wood stove, then hours bent over Raymond Carlisle's blueprints spread across the workshop table. The designs were intricate, layered, the kind of work that revealed new details each time you studied them. Raymond had drawn everything by hand, using pencils and rulers and a drafting precision that spoke of hundreds of hours of careful thought. The hydraulic ram pump was the heart of the system. Travis traced the water's path with his finger, following Raymond's careful annotations. Water from the spring would flow down through an intake pipe, building pressure in a drive chamber. When the pressure reached a certain threshold, a waste valve would slam shut, forcing water up through a delivery pipe to a storage tank positioned on higher ground. The waste valve would then reopen, the cycle would reset, and the whole process would repeat. No electricity, no fuel, just gravity, pressure, and the patient rhythm of flowing water. Raymond's notes filled the margins, calculations for pipe diameter based on flow rates, equations for pressure loss over distance, sketches of valve mechanisms, each iteration slightly different from the last. This wasn't the work of someone guessing. This was engineering, refined over decades, tested and retested until every variable was accounted for. Travis found a material list dated 2009. Pipes, valves, fittings, concrete for the cisterns, metal for the pump housing. Raymond had priced everything out, called suppliers, gotten quotes. The total came to $8,300. That was 15 years ago. Travis did rough math in his head, accounting for inflation. Maybe $12,000 now, maybe more. He had $870 left after paying the inheritance fees and buying basic supplies. The gap between what he had and what he needed was an abyss. But Raymond's notes also showed that the system was 70% complete. The pump housing was fabricated, sitting in the barn under a tarp, protected from weather. Most of the pipes were cut to length, threaded, ready for installation. The cisterns were dug, concrete poured, cured. Raymond had spent years preparing. All that remained was final assembly, installation, and testing. Travis could do assembly. He understood how things fit together. He'd spent his life joining materials, making connections that held under stress. But installation would require help. This wasn't a one-man job, and testing would require water flowing through the system, which meant connecting everything to the spring, which meant finding the spring in the first place. He spent a morning walking the property with Raymond's survey maps. The seasonal creek was obvious, a dry bed cutting through the north section. But the spring was marked on a different part of the property, northeast of the house, in a small ravine thick with willows. Travis pushed through the brush, following the topography, and found it. The spring emerged from a crack in the bedrock, clear water bubbling up and trickling down through moss-covered stones. The flow was steady, maybe 10 gallons a minute. Not huge, but constant. Travis put his hand in the water. It was ice-cold, clean, the kind of water that came from deep underground aquifers that had been filtering through rock for centuries. This was what Raymond had been protecting. This was the water source Maggie Whitfield didn't know about. Travis stood there, listening to the spring's quiet song, understanding why Raymond had never mentioned it in any public documents. Some advantages you kept hidden until you needed them. The property maps showed the spring elevation at 4,200 feet. The storage tank site Raymond had marked was at 4,260 feet, 60 feet of vertical lift. The hydraulic ram pump could handle that easily, according to Raymond's calculations. From the tank, gravity would feed water down to individual ranch connections. The whole system would be self-sustaining, perpetual motion powered by the spring's constant flow. Travis took photographs, made notes, measured distances. Then he walked back to the workshop and updated Raymond's blueprints with current observations. The spring flow seemed unchanged from Raymond's measurements. The ravine was overgrown but accessible. The basic geology was stable. It could work. Raymond had been right. The question wasn't whether the system was possible. The question was whether Travis could find the money and the help to build it. That afternoon, Hank Kimball returned with 3 other men in 2 trucks. They parked in the clearing and climbed out slowly, the way men who'd worked their whole lives climbed out of trucks, giving joints time to remember how they moved. Hank made introductions. The first man was in his late 20s, lean and weathered beyond his years, with hands that showed hard labor and eyes that showed something harder. Connor Wells worked as a ranch hand for Hank, plus 2 other part-time jobs. The second was maybe 40, compact and strong, with black hair going gray at the temples. David Huang. He and his wife Lynn had bought the old Morrison place in 2018, were trying to make it work raising cattle. The third was old, maybe mid-70s, bent from years of physical work but still moving under his own power. Everyone called him Jessup. He'd been ranching in Powder River Basin since 1974, had watched coal towns boom and bust, had survived droughts and markets crashes, and everything the land could throw at a man stubborn enough to stay. They gathered in the workshop. Travis showed them Raymond's blueprints, explained the system's mechanics, walked through the cost estimates. The men listened with the focused attention of people who understood that water meant survival. Ray showed me a prototype back in '06, Jessup said. His voice was rough, shaped by decades of wind and cigarette smoke. Damn thing worked, pumped water uphill smooth as glass. I asked him when he'd build the real system. He said soon as he got the money together. The old man shook his head. Guess he ran out of time. How much are we talking total? David Huang asked. His accent was slight, California more than anything else. For all 6 ranches. 12,000, maybe 14. Split 6 ways, that's 2,000 per property. Connor Wells laughed, but there was no humor in it. I don't have 2,000, I don't have 200. None of us have that kind of cash sitting around, David said. Whitfield's water fees are bleeding us dry. That's why we need this system. But if we can't afford to build it, we're stuck. Travis had expected this. He'd done the same math himself. People who could afford to pay wouldn't be desperate for an alternative. People who were desperate couldn't afford to pay. What if we build it ourselves? He said. Provide the labor. I've got most of the materials already. Raymond left them. What we're missing, we buy in stages. Finish one section, save up, buy parts for the next section. That'd take months, Hank said. It would, but it'd work. And at the end, we'd have a system that costs us nothing to operate. No monthly fees, no dependence on Whitfield's company. The men looked at each other. Travis could see them calculating, weighing desperation against hope. I can contribute labor, Connor said. I can weld, do basic fabrication, and I'll work cheap. Hell, I'll work for food if it means not paying $800 a month for trucked water. My wife and I can help too, David said. We don't have money, but we can dig, lay pipe, whatever's needed. Jessup nodded slowly. I'm too old to dig ditches, but I can supervise, make sure things are done right, and I've got equipment. Backhoe trencher, you can use it long as you maintain it. Hank smiled. Then I guess we're building a water system. They spent the next hour working out details. Travis would manage the project, using Raymond's designs as the guide. Each ranch would contribute labor based on what they could offer. Connor would handle welding and metal work. David and his wife would help with excavation and pipe laying. Jessup would provide equipment and oversight. Hank would coordinate with the other 2 ranches in the network, the Chen family and the Madsons, get them involved. They'd start with the pump station, get that built and tested. Once water was flowing uphill to the storage tank, they'd work on distribution lines to each property. Slow progress, but progress. As the men were leaving, Connor hung back. He was young, maybe 29, but his face carried the weight of someone older. He walked with Travis back to the workshop. I need to tell you something, Connor said, about why I'm really here. Travis waited. I owe $90,000 in student loans. Went to college thinking I'd get some business degree, make good money. Dropped out after 2 years when my dad got sick. Loans came due. Now I'm working 3 jobs and barely covering interest. Connor looked away. Whitfield's company offered me $500 a month to work for her, manage one of her properties. It's more than I make at all 3 jobs combined. Why didn't you take it? Because I'd have to evict people who can't pay their water fees. I'd have to be the guy showing up with sheriffs to kick families off land they've owned for generations. Connor's jaw tightened. I may be broke, but I'm not that. Travis understood. Desperation had limits right up until it didn't. Connor was close to that edge. You work on this project, Travis said. You'll learn skills worth more than a business degree. Welding, fabrication, hydraulics. That's knowledge you can use anywhere. If we finish. We'll finish. Connor looked at him. You sound sure. I'm not, but Raymond Carlisle spent 40 years preparing for this. He left us everything we need. The only question is whether we're willing to do the work. After Connor left, Travis sat alone in the workshop as evening settled over the ranch. He thought about the men who'd come today, each carrying their own weight, each needing this system for different reasons. Connor trying to escape debt, David and his wife trying to make their ranch survive, Jessup trying to hold on to a life he'd spent 50 years building, Hank trying to honor his dead friend's vision. And Travis, what was he trying to do? He was trying to finish something someone else had started, trying to prove that craft and knowledge mattered more than money, trying to show his daughter that building things that helped people was success that couldn't be measured in bank accounts. He was trying not to die alone, thinking he'd failed. The black Mercedes appeared on a Wednesday morning, rolling up the two-track road like a shark cutting through shallow water. Travis was outside, surveying the pump station site with Hank and Connor. They all stopped working when they saw the car. The Mercedes parked near the workshop. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. She was maybe 56, dressed in clothes that cost more than Travis made in a month back when he was working. Tailored jacket, expensive jeans, boots that had never seen mud. Her hair was dark, cut short in a style that was professional without being soft. She moved with confidence, the kind that came from having money and knowing how to use it. She looked at the ranch, at the sagging house and collapsed barn, with an expression that mixed contempt and something else. Something that might have been pain buried deep. Mr. Garrett, her voice was controlled neutral. That's right. I'm Maggie Whitfield. I own High Plains Development. I heard you bought this property. Travis had known this was coming. You don't build a water system designed to undercut someone's business without them noticing, but he'd hoped for more time. News travels fast, he said. It's a small community, people talk. She walked closer, stopped a careful distance away. I'll be direct. I'm prepared to offer you $40,000 for this property. Cash, close in 30 days. Travis did the math automatically. 40,000. 10 times what he'd paid. Enough to clear his debts, put something away for Lily's college, start over somewhere else without this weight pressing down. Not interested, he said. Maggie's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Mr. Garrett, you paid less than $5,000 for this place. I'm offering you 40. That's a substantial profit for a few weeks of ownership. It's not for sale. Everything's for sale. It's just a question of price. Then I guess some things don't have a price. Now Maggie's professional mask cracked slightly. You don't know what you're dealing with here. This property is worthless. The house is condemned. There's no water access except a seasonal creek that runs dry 4 months of the year. You can't ranch it. You can't develop it. All you can do is watch it fall apart. Travis looked at her, saw Raymond Carlisle's daughter, the girl in the photographs, the child who'd helped her father lay stone, saw what she'd become. Raymond was your father, he said. The words landed like a slap. Maggie's composure fractured for a moment, then reassembled itself into something harder, colder. Ray Carlisle was my biological father, she said. That's the extent of our relationship. I haven't been to this property in 34 years. Don't pretend you understand anything about us. He wrote about you in his journals, dozens of entries. He was proud of you, hurt that you left but proud. My father was obsessed with proving he was smarter than everyone else. He spent our grocery money on experiments while our cattle died. My mother left him because he cared more about his inventions than his family. I don't blame her. I made something of myself despite him, not because of him. Hank stepped forward. That's not true, Maggie. Your father loved you. Everything he built was trying to make the world better. Maggie turned on Hank with sudden fury. He was trying to prove he was right. There's a difference. And he died alone, broke, in a house falling apart around him. That's what his righteousness got him. She pulled a folder from her car, dropped it on the hood of Travis's truck. I own water rights to 3 creeks feeding this valley. Without access to surface water, your land is worthless for ranching. Ray spent 40 years trying to beat me. He failed. You will too. Take the money, leave, or learn the hard way that some fights you can't win. She got in her Mercedes and drove away, leaving dust hanging in the air. Travis picked up the folder. Inside were legal documents, water rights acquisitions, maps showing creek systems and property boundaries. Maggie Whitfield's company controlled access to every major surface water source in the region. Anyone who wanted to ranch had to pay her fees or drill expensive wells. Except Raymond hadn't been planning to use creek water. That evening, Travis spread property maps across the workshop table. He traced the spring's location, confirmed it was entirely within the ranch boundaries. Montana water law was complex, but springs were different from creeks. Springs belonged to the property owner. They couldn't be separated, couldn't be bought by outside companies. The water emerging from Travis's land was his to use. Raymond had known this, had protected this knowledge, had never mentioned the spring in any document Maggie might see. He'd spent 40 years letting his daughter think he was trying to beat her at her own game, when actually he'd been playing a completely different game all along. Travis felt something like admiration for the old man's strategy, but also sadness. Raymond could have reconciled with Maggie if he'd wanted, could have explained. Instead, he'd kept secrets, built systems, died alone. Won the engineering challenge but lost the relationship that mattered. Travis didn't want to make the same mistake. He called Lily. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding distracted. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, sweetheart, bad time." "Just studying, what's up?" Travis looked at the maps, at Raymond's careful notations, at the whole complicated web of water and land and family. "I wanted to hear your voice." A pause. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just thinking about things, about how easy it is to win the wrong fight." "That's cryptic." "Raymond's daughter came by today, offered me a lot of money for the ranch." "Are you going to take it?" "No, but I understand why she is the way she is. Her father chose his inventions over his family. She became successful by doing the opposite, practical, profitable, but somewhere along the way she turned into someone who hurts people." Lily was quiet. Then she said, "You left Mom to chase work. That hurt me, but you're trying now. That counts for something." "Does it?" "Yeah, Dad, it does." After they hung up, Travis sat in the workshop darkness. Outside, stars emerged in the enormous Montana sky. The same stars Raymond had watched for 40 years. The same stars that would keep burning long after everyone's fights were finished. Construction started on a cold October morning. The crew assembled at dawn. Travis, Hank, Connor, David Huang and his wife Lynn, Jessup in his truck with the backhoe. They gathered at the pump station site, breath fogging in the cold air, ready to turn Raymond's blueprints into reality. Travis had divided the work into phases. First, excavate the pump chamber, pour concrete, install the pump housing, connect intake pipes from the spring. Then work uphill, laying delivery pipes to the storage tank location. Finally, distribution lines to each ranch. Months of work, but achievable. Jessup operated the backhoe with the precision of someone who'd been running equipment for 50 years. The machine cut into earth, pulled out loads of dirt, deposited them in careful piles. Connor and David followed behind, using shovels to square the corners, smooth the bottom. Travis checked measurements constantly, making sure everything matched Raymond's specifications. Lin Huang worked alongside her husband, strong and competent, asking questions about why they did things certain ways, absorbing the knowledge. She was maybe 35, had come to America from Taiwan, married David, bought into the dream of ranching only to discover the reality was harder than the dream. In Taiwan, my family had small farm, she told Travis during a break. Government-controlled water, very expensive, very complicated. We thought America was different, but here, same problem. Someone owns water, charges what they want. Raymond's system changes that, Travis said. I hope so. We have 2 children. I want them to grow up on ranch. But if we can't afford water, we can't afford to stay. By afternoon, the excavation was complete. A hole 8 feet deep, 10 feet across, walls smooth and square. Travis climbed down, examined the bedrock at the bottom. Solid. Good foundation. Raymond had chosen this site well. They mixed concrete in a portable mixer Hank brought, poured the floor, working fast before it set, smoothed the surface, checked for level. The concrete would cure for a week before they could continue, but it was progress. Real, measurable progress. Connor stayed late, helping Travis clean tools. The young man worked with focused intensity, like he was trying to prove something to himself. My dad was a rancher, Connor said, oiling a shovel blade. Worked the same land for 30 years. Lost it to foreclosure when I was in college. That's why I came back. Tried to help, but it was too late. Bank took everything. I'm sorry. Me too, but it taught me something. Debt's a chain. Someone else holds one end, they control your life. This water system, if it works, it breaks that chain. Nobody can charge us for something that costs nothing to produce. Travis understood. Freedom wasn't just about money. It was about not being controlled by people who owned the resources you needed to survive. Lily visited that weekend. She'd been coming every Saturday, bringing supplies, helping with work, documenting the project for her school assignment. But Travis could see she was coming for more than school credit now. She was coming because she wanted to be part of something that mattered. She worked alongside Lin Huang, measuring pipe lengths, marking cutting lines. The 2 women talked easily, sharing stories. Lin told Lily about growing up in Taiwan, about coming to America with nothing but hope and her husband's determination. Lily told Lin about her father sleeping in workshops, about reading dead men's journals, about trying to understand why people chose hard paths when easier ones existed. Your father is brave, Lin said. Not many people would try to finish stranger's dream. I think he's trying to prove something, Lily said. To himself, maybe to me. Is it working? Lily looked over at Travis, who was teaching Connor proper stone-laying technique, the older man's hands guiding the younger man's, passing on knowledge the way it had been passed for centuries. Yeah, she said, I think it is. The sabotage happened on a Tuesday night. Travis arrived at the site Wednesday morning to find pipes cut, valve housing smashed, concrete cracked. Whoever did it had used sledgehammers and bolt cutters. The damage was surgical, targeting the most expensive components, the parts that would be hardest to replace. Hank walked the site, his face grim. $1,400 worth of damage. maybe more. Connor picked up a section of cut pipe. Same thing happened to Ray. He told me about it. Equipment failures, supplies going missing. He could never prove who did it, but everyone knew. Whitfield, David said. Travis photographed everything, called the county sheriff, filed a report. The deputy who came out was sympathetic but not hopeful. No witnesses, no direct evidence. Could have been anyone. He'd write it up, but don't expect arrests. After the deputy left, Travis gathered the crew. We need security, cameras, lights, someone here at night. I can do nights, Connor said. I'm working at the feed store till 9 anyway. I can come here after, sleep in my truck, keep watch. I'll help, David offered. We can trade off. They installed motion sensor lights, set up game cameras, started rotating night watches. But the damage was done. $1,400 they didn't have. Pipes they couldn't afford to replace. The project was bleeding money they'd never had in the first place. That evening, Travis sat in the workshop, looking at the ruined components spread across his workbench. This was Maggie Whitfield's strategy. Not direct confrontation, not legal challenges yet, just slow, steady pressure. Make the project expensive, make it frustrating, bleed them until they gave up. Raymond had faced this for years, had kept going anyway, had documented every setback, every mysterious failure, building a record even though he couldn't prove who was responsible. Travis opened one of the later journals from 2008, found an entry that made him stop. Someone cut through the main delivery pipe last night. 3rd time this month. I know it's Margaret. Know she's trying to stop me, but I can't blame her. I failed her as a father, failed to show her that some things matter more than money. Now she's become what I fought against, and it's my fault. If I'd been a better father, if I'd put her first instead of my work, maybe she'd understand why this matters. Maybe she'd help instead of fighting. But I made my choices. Now I live with them. All I can do is finish the work and hope someday she sees I was trying to help people, not prove I was right. Travis closed the journal. Raymond had known his daughter was sabotaging him, had known and kept building anyway, kept hoping she'd understand, died still hoping. The waste of it all settled in Travis's chest like a stone. A father and daughter, both convinced they were right, both hurting each other, neither willing to bridge the gap until it was too late. He picked up his phone, called Lily. Dad, it's late. I know, I just wanted to tell you something. I'm proud of you. The work you're doing on this project. The way you're handling school and helping here and dealing with your mom and stepdad. You're stronger than I was at your age. Stronger than I am now. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, thanks, Dad. I mean it. Whatever happens with this water system, whatever happens with the ranch, I want you to know that being your father is the most important thing I've ever done. More important than any work, any project. You matter most. I know that now. After they hung up, Travis felt something settle inside him. A weight lifted. Raymond had died estranged from his daughter, believing he'd failed. Travis wasn't going to make that mistake. Whatever else happened, whatever Maggie Whitfield did, Travis would keep Lily close, would keep telling her she mattered. The work would continue. The system would get built or it wouldn't. But the relationship with his daughter, that was the real project. That was the legacy that actually mattered. He walked outside into the cold night. Above, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. In the darkness, he could hear the spring flowing, patient and constant, waiting for hands to harness it. Raymond's vision, suspended in time, ready to flow forward if someone was willing to finish what he'd started. Travis looked toward the pump station site, saw the damage, saw the work remaining, saw the gap between what they had and what they needed. The odds weren't good, but Raymond had spent 40 years beating odds, had proved the system worked even when everyone said it couldn't. Travis would finish it, not because it was easy, not because it was profitable, but because it was right. Because Raymond had believed in second chances and left everything he had to prove they were possible. Because Lily was watching, learning that some things mattered more than money. Because Connor and David and Hank and Jessup needed to believe that community could beat corporations, that knowledge could defeat greed, that craft and determination could still change the world. Tomorrow they'd replace the damaged pipes, would install the cameras, would keep building despite the sabotage, despite the costs, despite Maggie Whitfield's money and power and determination to stop them. Raymond had fought this fight alone for 40 years, but Travis wasn't alone. He had help, had community, had his daughter learning to value the work more than the profit. That was the difference Raymond had never had, and maybe, just maybe, it would be enough. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the smell of sage and coming winter. Travis walked back to the workshop, his home now, surrounded by the tools and journals of a man who died believing he'd failed, but had actually prepared the way for someone else to succeed. The real work was just beginning. The foundation repair started on a Saturday morning in early November. Travis had noticed a section on the north side where mortar was crumbling, stones shifting slightly under pressure. Not structural failure yet, but headed that direction. Left alone through another winter, the freeze-thaw cycles would crack the joints wider, let water penetrate, eventually undermine the whole corner. Lily was there, along with Connor and Hank. They'd been making steady progress on the pump station despite the sabotage setback. The concrete had cured. The pump housing was installed. Now they needed to connect intake pipes from the spring, but that work required parts they were still saving money to buy. So Travis had suggested spending the day on maintenance, keeping the foundation solid. He showed them how to identify failing mortar, how to use a chisel and hammer to remove old material without damaging the stones, how to mix new mortar to match the original lime-based formula Raymond had used. The work was methodical, patient, the kind of craft that couldn't be rushed. Lily worked alongside Connor, both of them learning. Travis watched his daughter handle tools with growing confidence, saw her understanding how materials worked together, how craft knowledge passed from person to person through demonstration and practice. This was education you couldn't get from books. This was the kind of learning that stayed in your hands, in your muscles, in the instincts you developed after hours of repetition. Around midday, Travis was working on a particularly stubborn section when he noticed something odd. One stone, about 2 feet above ground level, had weathering that didn't match its neighbors. The surface was slightly smoother, the color marginally different, as if it had been exposed to weather for less time than the surrounding rocks. He tapped it with his hammer. The sound was hollow. "Hank, come look at this." The old rancher walked over, leaned close. Travis pointed out the inconsistencies. Hank nodded slowly. "Ray replaced that stone. I remember now. Maybe 5-6 years before he died. Said he was doing foundation maintenance. But he was particular about which section he worked on." Travis examined the mortar around the stone. It was newer than the rest, less weathered. He worked carefully, chiseling out the mortar, trying not to damage anything. The stone came loose easier than it should have, like it had been set with minimal mortar, meant to be removed. Behind the stone was a cavity in the foundation, deliberately created, lined with plastic sheeting to protect against moisture. Inside the cavity was a metal case, the kind designed to be waterproof and fireproof. Travis pulled it out carefully. The case was heavy, maybe 20 pounds. A combination lock secured the lid, 3 numbers, each dial going 0 through 9. "Well," Hank said quietly, "guess Ray left you something important." Travis turned the case over in his hands. No writing, no clue about what was inside or what the combination might be. Just a locked box hidden in a foundation, waiting for someone to find it. Try his birthday, Lily suggested. Travis looked at Hank. Do you remember when Ray was born? 1947, April 14th, 4/14/47. Travis tried different combinations. 414, 147, 414. Nothing worked. He tried Raymond's death year. The year he bought the property. The year his wife died. All wrong. Connor spoke up. What about the foundation? When did he build it? Hank thought. 68. Summer of 68. I remember because it was right after he bought the land. First thing he did was lay that foundation. Travis tried 680. The lock clicked open. Inside, the case held 3 items. A set of blueprints, rolled and protected in a plastic tube. A thick folder of documents, and a collection of photographs wrapped in cloth. Travis spread the blueprints on a flat section of ground. Lily and Connor leaned in to look. The drawings were similar to the ones they'd been using, but more complex, more ambitious. The title, written in Raymond's careful hand, read, Carlisle Valley Water System, version 2, community scale. The design showed a network serving not 6 ranches but 20, multiple pump stations positioned at strategic points, a main distribution hub with pressure regulation, backup systems, redundancy, capacity calculations for future expansion. This wasn't just a local solution. This was infrastructure that could change how an entire region accessed water. Raymond's notes filled the margins. Cost estimates, material specifications, construction sequences. He'd thought through every detail, planned for every contingency. The total cost was higher, maybe $60,000, but split 20 ways it was $3,000 per property. Still affordable, especially compared to drilling individual wells or paying Whitfield's monthly fees forever. He was thinking bigger than we knew, Hank said. Ray always talked about the 6-ranch system, never mentioned this. Travis studied the drawings. Maybe he knew people would think 20 ranches was too ambitious, so he designed the 6-ranch version as proof of concept. Get that working, then show people the larger system was possible. Lily pointed to a note at the bottom of the blueprint. It says here, if V1 succeeds, build this. Scale changes everything. 1 pump station can be defeated. 20 ranches united cannot be stopped. Connor was looking at the folder. He opened it carefully, found page after page of documentation. Water rights transfers, legal filings, property acquisitions, all related to Maggie Whitfield's company. Raymond had been tracking every move she made for years, recording dates, prices, legal tactics. This is evidence, Connor said. Ray was building a case, showing how Whitfield systematically bought up water access, created a monopoly, used legal pressure to force people to pay. Near the bottom of the folder, Travis found older documents, corporate filings from when Maggie first started her company in 2011, the business registration, the initial capitalization, the first property acquisitions. And there, in the financial records, something that made Travis stop. The company's initial funding, $147,000, listed as personal investment from Margaret Whitfield. 147,000, a specific number. Travis looked through more of Raymond's papers, found a bank statement from 2009 showing a savings account balance of $148,312, Raymond's life savings. The timeline was clear. Raymond died in 2010. His will left the property to a stranger, but what happened to his savings? The account had been closed, the money withdrawn. 6 months after his death, Maggie Whitfield founded a development company with almost exactly the same amount as initial capital. She inherited his money, Travis said quietly. Ray died, the estate went through probate, and somehow Maggie ended up with his savings, then used it to start a company that does exactly what he spent his life fighting against. Hank's face had gone pale. Ray told me once he had money set aside, said if anything happened to him, he wanted it used to build the water system, but he died intestate except for the land. No clear will about the money. Maggie was his only living relative. So she got everything, Lily said, then used his money to hurt the people he was trying to help. Travis looked at the photographs. The cloth-wrapped bundle held maybe 30 pictures spanning decades. Young Maggie, maybe 10 years old, working alongside her father. Both of them muddy, smiling, laying stone together. The affection between them was obvious, captured in the way they looked at each other, the way Raymond's hand rested on his daughter's shoulder. More photos showed teenage Maggie helping with construction projects, building a chicken coop, repairing fence, always working, always learning from her father. In every photo, Raymond looked proud. In every photo, Maggie looked happy. Then a gap, no photos for years. The next images showed a different Maggie, adult professional standing in business clothes at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The sign behind her read, High Plains Development LLC, Grand Opening 2011. She was smiling in the photo, but it was a different smile, professional, controlled, nothing like the genuine joy in the childhood pictures. Travis studied the photos side by side. The girl who'd loved working with her father had become the woman who'd used his money to build an empire that contradicted everything he believed. How did that transformation happen? What turned affection into antagonism so complete that she couldn't even visit him when he was dying? People change, Hank said softly, reading Travis's thoughts. Or maybe they become more of what they already were. Maggie was always smart, always determined. Those qualities made her successful, but somewhere along the way they also made her hard. They packed the materials carefully, took them back to the workshop. Travis spent the evening studying the advanced blueprints, comparing them to the version they were building. Raymond had been thinking decades ahead, had designed a system that could grow, adapt, serve an expanding community. This wasn't just about solving an immediate problem. This was about changing the fundamental relationship between people and essential resources. The documentation showed Raymond had understood exactly what he was fighting, had tracked Maggie's company's growth with the precision of someone who knew the enemy well, because she was his daughter, because he'd watched her become the thing he opposed and understood it was partially his fault. His neglect, his obsession with projects over family, had pushed her toward valuing exactly the things he thought didn't matter. The tragedy of it sat heavy in Travis's chest. A father and daughter, both brilliant, both determined, using their intelligence to hurt each other. Raymond building systems to free people from corporate control. Maggie building a corporation to prove she didn't need her father's approval, neither willing to bridge the gap until it was too late. Travis thought about Lily, about how easily parent and child could drift apart when pride and hurt feelings built walls between them. He picked up his phone, called his daughter. She was still in town, staying overnight at a friend's house. "Hey, Dad, what's up? Just wanted to say thank you for coming out here every weekend, for learning this work, for giving me a chance to be your father again." A pause. "You're getting sentimental in your old age." "Maybe, or maybe I'm learning from other people's mistakes." Raymond loved his daughter, but he loved his work more, or at least he showed it that way. By the time he realized what mattered, it was too late. "I don't want that to be us." "It's not us, Dad, we're good." "I know. I just wanted you to know that you matter more than any project, any system, any legacy I might build. You're what matters." After they hung up, Travis sat looking at the photographs of young Maggie and Raymond. Saw the relationship that could have been, should have been, would have been if both of them had chosen differently. But people rarely chose what they should choose. They chose what their pride and fear told them to choose and lived with the consequences. Connor Wells showed up at the ranch on a Wednesday afternoon when Travis was alone. The young man looked nervous, kept glancing at his truck like he was ready to bolt. "Need to talk to you about something," Connor said. They sat on the workshop steps. Connor was quiet for a long moment, working up courage. "I did something stupid, something I'm ashamed of." Travis waited. "Maggie Whitfield approached me 3 weeks ago, offered me $5,000 to feed her information about the project. What we're building, where we're getting materials, when we plan to go operational." The words landed like stones. Travis felt betrayal rise in his throat, fought it down, stayed quiet, let Connor finish. "I said yes. I took $2,000 up front. She wanted photos of the blueprints, detailed progress reports. I've been sending her updates every few days." "What did you tell her?" "Everything: the pump station progress, the distribution line plans, our material orders, the spring location." Connor looked at Travis. I'm so sorry, I needed the money. Student loans are killing me. My mom's medical bills. I thought I could take Whitfield's money and it wouldn't matter because we'd finish the system anyway. But I was wrong. I betrayed you, betrayed everyone." Travis felt anger, disappointment, understanding, all mixed together. Connor was 29 years old, drowning in debt, looking at a lifetime of payment plans and interest that would never stop compounding. $5,000 was probably more than he'd saved in his entire life. The temptation must have been enormous. "Does Maggie know about the spring?" Travis asked. "I sent her photos of the site, but I didn't explain the legal distinction between spring water and creek water. I don't think she understands that yet." Small mercy. Their one advantage might still be intact. "What did she say when you sent the updates?" "Not much. Just asked for more detail. Wanted to know our timeline, when we plan to connect the distribution lines. She seemed very interested in our schedule." Travis thought about this. Maggie was planning something, gathering intelligence, waiting for the right moment to strike. Legal challenge, probably. Some regulatory obstacle they'd have to fight. She'd use the same tactics against Raymond. Delay, obstruct, make the project too expensive to continue. "Here's what's going to happen," Travis said. "You're going to keep feeding Maggie information. But from now on, you tell her what I say you can tell her. You're going to be our double agent. She thinks you're hers, but you're actually ours." Connor looked stunned. "You're not kicking me out." "No, you made a mistake, a bad one, but you came clean. That counts for something. Now you're going to fix it by helping us stay one step ahead of her." "I don't deserve this." "Probably not, but Raymond spent 40 years fighting Maggie alone. He lost. We're not going to lose because we're not alone. We're a community. And community means we help each other even when we screw up, especially when we screw up." Connor's eyes were wet. He nodded, unable to speak. "Go see Hank," Travis said. "Tell him what you told me. Then tell David and Lynn. No secrets. Everyone needs to know. But I'll vouch for you. You stay on the crew. You work off your betrayal by helping us win." After Connor left, Travis sat thinking about trust and forgiveness and the complicated math of human relationships. He should be angrier. Should throw Connor off the project, maybe report him to the sheriff for some kind of fraud or industrial espionage. But anger wouldn't build the water system, wouldn't help Connor escape his debt, wouldn't change the fact that desperate people made desperate choices. Raymond had fought alone and died alone, believing he'd failed. Travis was building something different. A community that could absorb mistakes, forgive failures, stay united against pressure designed to divide them. That was the real innovation, not the hydraulic ram pump, the human connection. The next visitor arrived on Saturday. Travis was working with Lily, teaching her how to thread pipe joints when a pickup truck pulled up. An old man climbed out, moving slowly, wearing the clothes of someone who'd spent his life taking clergy seriously. Black pants, white shirt, plain jacket. He had to be close to 70, with white hair and a face that suggested he'd heard a lot of confessions and kept all of them. "Mr. Garrett, I'm Frank Holder. I was Raymond Carlisle's pastor." They shook hands. Travis introduced Lily. Pastor Frank smiled at her, the kind of smile that made you feel like you were somebody's favorite grandchild. "Ray talked about having a daughter," the pastor said. "Wished things had worked out different with her. I think he'd be glad to see you working with yours." They sat in the workshop. Pastor Frank looked around at the tools, the journals, the blueprints covering the walls. "Haven't been in here since Ray died. Brings back memories." "You knew him well." 20 years. He came to services most Sundays, didn't talk much, but he listened. Ray was a listener, took things in, thought about them, processed them in his own time. We'd have coffee sometimes after church. He'd tell me about his projects, his inventions, his regrets. Travis waited. Pastors carried stories. Sometimes they needed space to tell them. "There's something you should know," Frank said. "Something I've carried for 14 years. Ray made me promise not to tell anyone while he was alive, but he didn't say anything about after. And I think you need to hear this." He paused, gathering thoughts or courage or both. "In March of 2010, Ray called me, asked if I could come out to the ranch, said he needed to talk. I drove out here, found him weaker than I'd ever seen him. He was dying, heart failure. Doctors had given him 6 months, probably less. Ray showed me a stack of savings bonds, said he'd been setting money aside for 40 years. Small amounts when he could afford it. Never spent it, just let it accumulate. The bonds had matured to about $147,000. Travis felt something cold settle in his chest. The exact amount Maggie had used to start her company. Ray wanted to leave the money to his daughter, but he wanted to attach a condition. She had to use it to build the water system, help the community he was leaving behind. He asked me what I thought. "What did you tell him?" "I told him he should talk to Maggie. Make peace before putting conditions on love. Money with strings attached isn't generosity, it's control. If he wanted to reconcile with his daughter, he needed to do it as her father, not as someone trying to direct her life from beyond the grave." Pastor Frank looked down at his hands. "Ray tried. He called Maggie, asked if she'd visit. She refused, told him she was done pretending they had a relationship. That was the last time they spoke." "What did Ray do with the money?" "Changed his will. Left the land to someone who'd appreciate it, someone who needed a second chance the way he'd needed one. But the money, he put that in a different account, made arrangements for it to pass to Maggie through probate. No conditions, no strings, just a father leaving what he had to his daughter." Travis understood, and Maggie used it to start High Plains development. "She did. I don't know if she knew it was her father's life savings. The probate attorney handled everything. She might have just seen it as an inheritance from an estate. But yes, she used that money to build a company that does exactly what Ray spent his life fighting against." The weight of it was staggering. Raymond had tried to reconcile, had given his daughter everything he had, unconditionally, hoping maybe generosity would bridge the gap that words couldn't. And Maggie had taken that money and turned it into a weapon against her father's community. Whether she knew what she was doing, whether she understood the bitter irony, Travis couldn't say. But the result was the same. Raymond's life savings funding the very monopoly he'd tried to break. "Why are you telling me this now?" Travis asked. "Because you're trying to finish Ray's work. and I think you should know what you're up against. Maggie isn't just a businesswoman protecting her interests. She's a daughter who never got past her anger at her father. Every time she charges someone for water, she's proving she doesn't need him. Every time someone struggles to pay, she's showing that his way doesn't work, that profit and power are what matter. This isn't just about money for her. It's about winning an argument with a dead man. And that makes her more dangerous than simple greed would make her. Lily had been quiet listening. Now she spoke. What happened to Ray's wife, Maggie's mother? Sarah died in 1984. Cancer. Maggie was 16. The doctors said there wasn't much they could do, but Ray could have taken her to specialists in Billings or Denver, could have tried experimental treatments. He didn't. Kept her here at home, made her comfortable, stayed by her side. Sarah wanted it that way, but Maggie blamed him for not fighting harder. Was she right to blame him? Pastor Frank was quiet for a moment. That's not for me to judge. Sarah was an adult. She made her choice. Ray honored it, but Maggie was a child watching her mother die. Children don't always understand that sometimes people choose how they want to go. They just see the parent who could have done more and didn't. After Pastor Frank left, Travis and Lily sat in the workshop. Outside, the November sky was gray, heavy with the promise of snow. Winter was coming. They'd need to finish the pump station and get water flowing before the ground froze solid. "Do you think the money's still here?" Lily asked. "Hidden somewhere on the property?" "I don't know. Raymond withdrew it before he died. But if he used it to capitalize Maggie's inheritance, it went through probate. That's public record. Maybe that's all there was." But Travis wasn't sure. Something about the way Pastor Frank had told the story felt incomplete. Like there were pieces missing, information held back, not from deception but from not knowing the full truth. He thought about the hidden blueprints, about Raymond's habit of leaving information for people to find, about the careful way he documented everything, created maps and plans and explanations. Raymond was methodical. If he'd wanted his money to help his daughter, he'd have made sure she got it. But if he'd wanted to leave something for the person who bought the ranch, for someone willing to finish the water system, he'd have hidden it carefully. Travis looked at Lily. "Your acceptance letter from Montana State, when did that come?" "Last week, full scholarship for engineering. Mom's really proud." "That's amazing, sweetheart. You earned it." Lily was quiet. "Greg wants to talk to me. Mom's husband. He said he'd help pay for housing and expenses if I need it, but he wants me to stop coming out here on weekends. Says it's distracting me from school, that I should focus on my future instead of helping you with projects that might not succeed." Travis felt anger rise, pushed it down. Greg was successful, stable, the kind of person who measured value in dollars and status. Of course he'd see the water system as a distraction. Of course he'd want Lily focused on career advancement instead of learning stonework from her broke father. "What do you want to do?" Travis asked. "I want to keep coming here. I like this work. I like building things that matter. Greg doesn't get that. He thinks success means making money and buying things. But you're building something that helps people. That's success too." "College is important, Lily. Engineering degree will open doors." "I know, and I'm going, but I can do both. School during the week, here on weekends. I'll get a job to pay expenses. I don't need Greg's money if it comes with conditions." Travis looked at his daughter, 17 years old and already understanding what had taken him 4 decades to learn, that some things couldn't be bought, that autonomy mattered more than comfort, that principles were worth sacrifice. "You're stronger than I was at your age," he said. "I learned from you, from Raymond too, in a way. He never gave up even when everyone said he was crazy, even when his own daughter fought him. He kept building because the work mattered. That's what I want to do, build things that matter." That night Travis couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the money. $147,000, Raymond's life savings, given to Maggie, used to start a company, now presumably spread across business accounts and investments, not hidden on the property, not available to help finish the water system. But Pastor Frank's story had a strange quality to it. The way he'd said Raymond made arrangements for the money to pass to Maggie through probate, the careful phrasing, like there was more to the story than a simple inheritance. Travis got up, lit a lantern, pulled out Raymond's journals, started reading through the final year, 2009 to 2010, looking for any mention of money, of savings, of plans for after he died. Most entries were technical: pump calculations, material lists, construction sequences. But near the end, in the last few months of Raymond's life, the tone changed. The handwriting got shakier. The entries became more personal, less about engineering and more about legacy. April 2010. Talked to Frank today. He thinks I should give Maggie the money with no conditions, just love, just faith that she'll do right. I want to believe that, but I know her. Know how angry she is. If I leave her money free and clear, she'll use it to prove she doesn't need me. Might even use it to hurt the people I'm trying to help. But what choice do I have? I can't force her to forgive me. Can't control what she does after I'm gone. All I can do is give her what I have and hope. Hope that somewhere inside the angry woman, there's still the girl who used to help me lay stone, who used to believe in building things that last. May 2010. Made my decision, split the money. Half goes to Maggie through probate, no conditions, just a father's gift to his daughter. The other half I've hidden, left it for the person who buys this place. The one who will finish what I started. That person will need resources, will face opposition I can't predict. The money's my insurance, my way of helping from beyond the grave. Travis's pulse quickened. Split the money. Half to Maggie, half hidden. That meant $73,000 still somewhere on the property, waiting to be found. He kept reading, looking for clues about where Raymond had hidden it. But the journal entries became more sparse. Raymond was dying, energy failing. The final entry was dated June 2010, 3 weeks before he died. Getting weaker, can't write much anymore, hope I've left enough information. Hope the person who comes understands what I was trying to do. The money's hidden where a builder would look, where someone who understands foundations would naturally search. It's insurance. It's a test. Don't use it unless you've already started building. Don't take it unless you're committed. The work matters more than the money, but the money helps finish the work. If you're reading this, you've already found the advanced blueprints. You know the bigger vision. Build it. Use the money to build it. Show the world that community can beat corporations. That knowledge shared freely is more powerful than resources hoarded. That's my legacy. Not the pump, the principle behind it. Where a builder would look, where someone who understands foundations would search. Travis thought about the hidden blueprints, found in a cavity behind a stone in the foundation. That was where Raymond hid important things, in the foundation he'd built, in the structure that held everything else up. He grabbed a flashlight, went outside. The night was cold, stars sharp overhead. He walked the foundation perimeter, examining every stone, looking for more inconsistencies, more replaced sections, more hiding places. Found nothing on the first pass, but Raymond was careful, methodical. He wouldn't hide everything in one spot. Too risky. If someone found one cache, they might not think to look for others. Travis went back to the journals, read through entries from when Raymond first built the foundation. 1968. Detailed notes about stone selection, mortar mixing, corner construction. And there, a seemingly casual comment. Set the cornerstone today. Northeast corner. Bought this land 2 years ago with $900, but today is when I truly start building. Tradition says you put something meaningful in the cornerstone, something that represents what you're building. I put in my first trowel, the one I used to mix the first batch of mortar. Buried treasure for whoever comes after. Northeast corner. Travis walked to it, examined the stones carefully. Found the cornerstone, larger than the others, positioned at the exact corner where two walls met. The stone had no obvious markings, but when Travis tapped it with his hammer, the sound was slightly different from its neighbors. He started removing mortar, worked carefully, not wanting to damage the foundation. The cornerstone was set deeper than the others, and when he finally worked it loose, he understood why. Behind the cornerstone was a larger cavity, carefully constructed, lined with metal to protect against moisture. Inside was a canvas bag, heavy and unmistakable. Travis pulled it out, opened it carefully. Inside were banded stacks of savings bonds. He counted them by flashlight. $73,000 in face value, the other half of Raymond's life savings, hidden in the cornerstone of the foundation he'd built 57 years ago, waiting for someone who understood buildings well enough to look in the right place. Travis sat on the cold ground, holding the money that would change everything. With $73,000, they could build the full system, could connect not just 6 ranches but 20. Could prove that Raymond's vision wasn't just possible but transformative. But Raymond's journal had been clear. This was a test. Don't use it unless you've already started building. Don't take it unless you're committed. Travis had started building, had committed himself, had faced sabotage and opposition and kept going. He'd passed the test Raymond had set. The money was his to use, but it came with responsibility, with expectation, with the weight of a dead man's faith that someone would care enough to finish what he couldn't. Travis looked up at the sky. The same stars Raymond had watched for 42 years, the same stars that would still be burning long after the water system was built, after everyone involved was dead and gone. The work outlasted the worker. The legacy outlasted the life. He gathered the bonds carefully, put them back in the canvas bag, carried them to the workshop. Tomorrow he'd tell the others. Tomorrow they'd start planning the expanded system. Tomorrow the real work would begin. But tonight he just sat in Raymond's workshop, surrounded by Raymond's tools, holding Raymond's legacy in his hands, understanding finally what it meant to be trusted with someone else's dream. The foundation held everything up. The cornerstone held the foundation, and hidden in the cornerstone, the resources to build something that would outlast them all. Raymond had understood that, had planned for it, had died knowing he'd left everything in place for the right person to find. Travis pulled out his phone, called Lily even though it was past midnight. "Dad, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. I found it. Raymond left us money, enough to build the whole system, enough to finish what he started." Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "He trusted you. He trusted whoever came after him, whoever cared enough to look." "That's you, Dad. You cared enough." After they hung up, Travis sat holding the money that would make everything possible. $73,000, Raymond's gift from beyond the grave. Not to his daughter, though he'd given her half, hoping for reconciliation that never came, but to the stranger who'd buy his land for almost nothing and choose to finish a dead man's dream instead of selling for profit. Raymond had bet everything on that stranger being someone who valued legacy over money, who'd start building before finding the hidden resources, who'd prove through action that the work mattered more than the reward. Travis had passed that test without knowing he was being tested, had committed himself to finishing the water system when he had $800 and no clear path to success, had kept building through sabotage and opposition and the slowly dawning understanding that this fight would cost him everything. Now he had resources, had a community willing to work, Had his daughter learning that some things mattered more than profit? Had Connor learning that betrayal could be redeemed through service? Had all the pieces Raymond had carefully assembled falling into place? The foundation was solid. The cornerstone had given up its secret. Tomorrow, they'd start building something that would last longer than any of their lives. Raymond Carlisle had died 14 years ago, alone in this house, believing he'd failed. But he hadn't failed. He just needed someone to finish what he'd started. Someone to prove that legacy wasn't about what you accomplished in your lifetime. It was about what you made possible for the people who came after. Travis understood that now. Understood it in his bones, in his hands, in the weight of responsibility settling across his shoulders. He was building for Raymond, for the community, for Lily, for whoever would come after them all 50 years from now, 100 years from now, still drawing clean water from a system built by people whose names they'd never know. That was legacy. That was the work that mattered. And tomorrow, with Raymond's gift making it possible, they'd build something worthy of the trust a dead man had placed in strangers he'd never meet. The wind moved through the grass outside. The stars wheeled overhead. And in the workshop, surrounded by tools that had shaped stone and wood and metal into structures that outlasted their makers, Travis Garrett understood finally what it meant to be chosen for this work. Not because he was special, but because he'd been willing to start with nothing, willing to keep going when the odds were against him, willing to finish what someone else had started simply because the work needed doing. Raymond had bet his legacy on that willingness. Tomorrow, Travis would prove that bet had been wise. The legal papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a county deputy who looked embarrassed to be serving them. Travis signed for the envelope, waited until the deputy's truck disappeared down the two-track road, then opened it. Inside were two separate filings. The first was a lawsuit from High Plains Development LLC, claiming that water extraction from Travis's property violated downstream users' rights under Montana water law. The complaint alleged environmental damage, threatened species habitat disruption, and interference with established water rights. It demanded an immediate halt to all construction and required an environmental impact study before work could resume. The second filing was a county code enforcement complaint. Unpermitted construction, failure to obtain proper engineering approvals, potential safety violations. The county was requiring a full inspection and compliance review before the project could continue. Travis read through both documents carefully. The language was dense, full of legal terminology designed to intimidate. But the message was clear. Stop building or face escalating consequences. Delays, fines, potential criminal charges for code violations. He called the attorney Mrs. Fletcher had recommended. She read through the filings while Travis waited on the line. "This is harassment," she said finally. "The spring water rights are clear. You own them. The county permits you filed were approved. This is Whitfield trying to delay you, run up your legal costs, make the fight too expensive to continue." Can she win? In court, no, but she doesn't need to win. She just needs to drag this out. Environmental impact study costs $15,000 minimum, takes 4 to 6 months. The county inspection and compliance review, that's another few thousand, another few months of delays. By the time you're cleared to resume work, winter will be here. Ground will be frozen. You'll lose the construction season. Travis looked out the workshop window. November was already here. They had maybe 3 weeks before the ground froze solid. The pump station was 60% complete. Distribution lines mapped but not yet installed. They were so close. "How much to fight this?" he asked. $15,000 for the environmental study. Another $5,000 for legal fees to respond to both filings. $20,000 total, and that's if nothing else comes up. Travis had Raymond's 73,000, but that money was meant to build the system, not fight legal battles. 20,000 would leave 53,000 for construction. Enough, barely, if nothing else went wrong. Do it, Travis said. File the responses, get the study started. We're not stopping. After hanging up, Travis gathered the crew. Hank, Connor, David, and Lin Huang Jessup. They met at the pump station site, surrounded by partially assembled equipment, pipes waiting to be connected, the physical evidence of months of work. He told them about the lawsuits, about the delays, about the costs. "We can fight this," Travis said. "I have money Raymond left, enough to pay for the legal defense and finish construction, but it'll be tight, and we're racing winter now. 3 weeks, maybe 4, to get the system operational before the ground freezes." David Huang shook his head. 4 weeks. We need at least 8 to finish properly. The distribution lines alone, that's hundreds of yards of trenching, pipe laying, connections. Even working full-time, we can't do it in 4 weeks. Then we work faster, longer hours, bring in more help. Who? Lin asked. Everyone who could help is already helping. The other ranchers in the network, they're scared now. Whitfield is threatening lawsuits against anyone who participates. Some of them are talking about pulling out. Travis felt the project slipping away. This was exactly what Maggie wanted: pressure from multiple directions, legal costs mounting, community solidarity fracturing under threat of individual consequences. Raymond had faced this for years, had watched his support erode, his resources drain, his vision die from 1,000 small cuts. "We need to raise money," Hank said. "Community fundraiser. There are people who believe in this project, people who want to see Whitfield's monopoly broken." They organized it for the following Saturday, posted flyers in town, spread word through church networks and ranching associations. The event was at the community center in Forsyth, a drafty building that smelled like old wood and decades of potluck dinners. Travis expected maybe 30 people. 140 showed up. They came from all over Powder River County, ranchers who were struggling with Whitfield's water fees, families who'd left the area because they couldn't afford to stay, young people who wanted to return but saw no future in a region controlled by corporate monopolies, old-timers who remembered when water was something you shared, not something you sold. Travis stood at the front of the room, uncomfortable being the center of attention. He'd brought Raymond's blueprints, spread them on tables for people to examine. Lily had created a presentation showing how the system would work, the costs, the benefits, the long-term sustainability. "This isn't just about one ranch," Travis said. "It's about proving that communities can solve their own problems, that we don't have to depend on companies that profit from our needs." Raymond Carlisle spent 40 years designing this system. He died before he could build it, but he left us everything we need to finish it: the knowledge, the plans, the proof that it works. Maggie Whitfield is trying to stop us because this system threatens her business model. If we succeed, other communities will try the same thing. Her monopoly breaks, so she's using lawyers and regulations and fear to make us quit. But we're not quitting. We're going to finish what Raymond started, and we need your help. The response was overwhelming. People donated money they couldn't afford to donate. $50 here, 100 there, sometimes just 20 or 10 from families living on tight margins. By the end of the evening, they'd raised $8,300. It wasn't enough. They needed $20,000 for legal fees and the environmental study. They were still $11,700 short, and winter was coming. Connor Wells disappeared 3 days later. He didn't show up for work at the pump station, didn't answer his phone. His truck was gone from Hank's property where he'd been staying. Travis felt worry mix with frustration. They needed everyone working full-time, They couldn't afford to lose people now. Connor returned on Friday afternoon. He pulled up to the ranch in his mother's old sedan, a beat-up Toyota that she rarely drove anymore. He climbed out slowly, looking exhausted. Travis walked over. "Where have you been?" Connor pulled an envelope from his jacket, handed it to Travis. Inside was a cashier's check for $11,700. "I sold my truck," Connor said. "Got $6,000 for it. Cashed out my 401k early, took the penalty, got another $4,000. Borrowed $1,700 against my mom's house. It's yours. Finish the system." Travis stared at the check. $11,700, the exact amount they needed, but the cost to Connor was staggering. His only transportation gone, his retirement savings depleted, his mother's house now carrying debt. This was financial suicide for someone already drowning. "I can't take this," Travis said. "You're destroying yourself. You gave me a second chance when I betrayed you. Let me earn it back." "Not like this, not by ruining yourself financially." Connor's voice hardened. "What's money worth if you're too ashamed to look in a mirror? I sold you out for $5,000, took Whitfield's money and fed her information. That $5,000 is gone now, spent on debt payments and bills and nothing I can point to. But this $11,700, this builds something real. This finishes what Ray started. That's worth more than a truck or savings I'd never see anyway." Travis looked at the young man, saw the desperation but also the determination, saw someone trying to redeem himself the only way he knew how, by sacrifice, by putting everything on the line for something bigger than his own survival. "The system works, we all save money," Connor continued. "No more $800 a month for water. That's nearly $10,000 a year per ranch. I'll make this back. It'll take time, but I'll make it back. And even if I don't, at least I'll have built something that matters. At least I'll be able to say I helped instead of just taking care of myself." Travis took the check, not because he wanted to, but because refusing it would destroy Connor worse than accepting it, would tell the young man his sacrifice meant nothing. That redemption wasn't possible. That betrayal was permanent. "You're part of this crew until the end," Travis said. "And when the system's operational, when we're all saving money, we pay you back, with interest." Connor nodded, unable to speak. With Connor's money added to the fundraiser, they had enough. $20,000 for legal fees. $53,000 left from Raymond's savings for construction. They could finish. If they worked fast, if winter held off, if nothing else went wrong. They pushed construction into overdrive. Work started at dawn and continued until dark. Travis, Connor, Hank, David, and Lynn, even Jessup despite his arthritis. Lily deferred her first semester at Montana State, moved to the ranch full-time to help. The other ranchers in the network, seeing the community support, found their courage again, started showing up with tools and willing hands. They worked like people who understood this was their only chance. Trenches dug through increasingly cold ground, pipes laid and connected despite frozen fingers. The pump housing installed, valve systems calibrated, delivery lines tested. Every day brought them closer. Every day winter pushed harder. Travis pushed hardest of all. He was up before anyone else, worked later, drove himself with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Lily noticed. Hank noticed. But they didn't stop him because they understood. This was more than a construction project now. This was proving that Raymond's faith had been justified. That community could beat corporations. That legacy mattered more than profit. The blizzard hit on a Thursday in late November. Weather reports had been predicting it for days. Early season storm system moving down from Canada, heavy snow and high winds expected. The ground was already starting to freeze at night. If they didn't get the final connections made before the storm hit, They'd lose months waiting for spring thaw. Travis made the decision. They'd work through the storm's arrival, get the last critical sections connected, make the system operational before the worst weather hit. Thursday morning dawned gray and cold. Wind from the north, temperature in the 20s, sky heavy with the promise of snow. Travis, Connor, and Hank loaded equipment, drove to the spring site where the intake pipes needed final installation. This was the critical connection. Spring water to pump chamber. Once this was done, the system could be tested, could prove it worked. They started work at 7. By 9, the first snowflakes were falling. Light at first, just flurries spinning in the wind, but the temperature kept dropping. The snow intensified. By noon, visibility was down to 50 feet, wind gusts strong enough to knock a man off balance. "We should stop," Hank shouted over the wind. "This is getting dangerous." 2 more hours, Travis yelled back. "We're almost done." They kept working. The intake pipe was heavy, awkward, fighting them in the wind. Connor welded joints while Travis and Hank steadied the sections. Snow accumulated on their clothes, their tools, the ground around them. The world became white noise and freezing cold, and the stubborn determination to finish what they'd started. By 2 in the afternoon, they had the intake pipe positioned. Travis climbed down into the excavated pit where the pump chamber sat, a concrete vault 8 feet deep. He needed to make the final connection, seal the joint, verify the flow path was clear. The bottom of the pit was icy. Travis's boots slipped as he moved. He caught himself, steadied, reached for the pipe connection. That's when the shelf of ice and frozen dirt gave way beneath him. He fell hard, crashed through into a void below the pit, broke through into freezing water. The seasonal creek bed, swollen with early runoff, flowing beneath the excavation. The shock of ice-cold water drove the air from his lungs. Current pulled at him, tried to drag him under. Travis fought for the surface, got his head up, gasped for breath. His heavy coat was soaked, pulling him down. His boots filled with water. The cold was immediate and total, a fist clenching around his chest, stopping his breathing, shutting down his body with terrifying speed. He heard shouting above, saw Connor's face appear over the edge of the pit, felt hands grabbing his coat, hauling him up with desperate strength. He came out of the water, was dragged onto solid ground, couldn't stop shaking, couldn't feel his hands or feet. The world was spinning, fading at the edges. "Get him to the barn," Hank was yelling. "Now move." Connor half-carried, half-dragged Travis through the blizzard. The barn was 200 yards away. Might as well have been 2 miles. Every step was agony. Every breath felt like breathing knives. Travis's clothes were freezing on his body, turning into ice armor that cracked with each movement. They made it to the barn. Connor kicked open the door, got Travis inside out of the wind. The barn was old, drafty, but it cut the worst of the weather. Connor stripped off Travis's frozen clothes with shaking hands, wrapped him in horse blankets they found in a storage box. "Don't let me sleep," Travis managed through chattering teeth. He knew hypothermia, knew that sleep was death, had to stay conscious, had to keep moving, had to fight the overwhelming urge to just close his eyes and rest. "I won't," Connor said. He was rubbing Travis's arms, his legs, trying to restore circulation. "Stay with me, talk to me, tell me about Lily, tell me about anything, just keep talking." Travis tried, but the words wouldn't come. The cold was too deep now in his bones, in his core. His vision was blurring. He could see things that weren't there. Raymond Carlisle standing in the corner of the barn, watching. Sarah beside him, the woman from the photographs. Both of them young again, strong, looking at Travis with something like pity. "You're going to die," Raymond said. His voice was gentle, matter of fact. "Same as me, alone, trying to finish something that can't be finished." It can be finished, Travis tried to say, but his lips wouldn't move right. I found your money, found the blueprints, I'm finishing it. For who? For Maggie. She doesn't want it. For the community. They'll forget in 10 years. For Lily. She'll leave, go to college, build her own life. You're dying for an idea, Travis, just like I did. And ideas don't keep you warm, don't fill the hole where family should be. You're wrong, Travis managed. The work matters, legacy matters. Legacy? Raymond laughed bitter. I left a legacy. 40 years of journals and blueprints gathering dust. A daughter who used my life savings to build the thing I fought against. A water system that died with me. That's legacy. That's what you die for. Dust and regret and children who move on without you. No, Travis said, but he wasn't sure anymore. The cold was in his head now, making it hard to think. Maybe Raymond was right. Maybe this was all futile. Maybe he should just rest, close his eyes, let the cold take him, join Raymond in whatever place dead dreamers went. Connor was shaking him. Travis, stay awake. The storm's passing. Help is coming. Just stay with me a little longer. But Travis was so tired, so cold, it would be easy to sleep, so easy. Dad. The voice cut through the fog. Not Raymond's, not Connor's, Lily's. Travis's eyes opened. Lily was there in the barn, her face pale with fear. Dad, don't you dare give up. We're so close. The system's almost done. You don't get to quit now. Cold, Travis managed. I know, we're warming you up. The ambulance is coming. You're going to be okay, but you have to fight, you have to want to stay. Travis looked at his daughter, 17 years old and stronger than he'd ever been, choosing to be here instead of safe in Billings with her mother, learning to build things that mattered, becoming the person he'd tried to be and failed. I'm sorry, he said, for missing your recitals, your birthdays, for choosing work over you. You're here now, that's what matters. You're teaching me things Greg could never teach me. How to build, how to fight for what's right, how to finish what you start even when it costs everything. Tears ran down her face. But you have to live to finish it. You hear me? You have to live. Raymond's ghost was fading, or maybe Travis's vision was clearing. The barn was just a barn. No ghosts. Just Connor and Lily and Hank, all of them working to save his life. All of them here because they believed in what he was building, in what Raymond had designed, in the idea that community mattered more than profit. Okay, Travis whispered. Okay, I'll fight. The ambulance took an hour to arrive, struggling through the blizzard. They loaded Travis on a stretcher, started warming protocols, rushed him to the hospital in Forsyth. Hypothermia, severe but survivable. They kept him overnight, monitored his core temperature, lectured him about working in dangerous conditions. Lily stayed by his bed the whole time, held his hand while he slept, was there when he woke up the next morning, groggy and bruised but alive. The system, he asked. Connor finished the connection. The intake pipe is installed. We can test as soon as you're out of here. I could have died. I know. For a water pump. Not for a pump, Dad, for what it represents, for proving Ray was right, for showing people there's another way. Lily squeezed his hand. But you scared the hell out of me. Don't do that again. Travis was released that afternoon. Against medical advice, but he signed the papers, promised to rest, let Lily drive him back to the ranch. The storm had passed. 2 feet of snow on the ground, but the sky was clear, sun bright on the white landscape. The crew was at the pump station when they arrived. Everyone had kept working through the storm's aftermath. The final connections were made. The system was ready to test. Travis climbed out of the truck slowly, his body protesting every movement. Connor came over looking worried. You should be in bed. I'll rest when the water's flowing. They gathered at the pump chamber. Travis checked the connections one last time. Everything was in place. Intake pipe from the spring, pump mechanism with its carefully calibrated valves, delivery pipe running uphill to the storage tank. The whole system Raymond had spent 40 years designing, ready to prove itself. "Open the intake valve," Travis said. Connor turned the valve. Water began flowing into the pump chamber. They watched the level rise, listened to the sound of moving water, felt the weight of decades of work and hope concentrated into this moment. The pump's waste valve slammed shut as pressure built. Water rushed through the delivery pipe, forced uphill by nothing but gravity and engineering genius. The rhythmic thumping started. Thump, 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 like a heartbeat, like a promise being kept. They walked uphill to the storage tank, following the delivery pipe. Water was flowing into the tank, clear and cold, powered by the spring's constant pressure and Raymond's brilliant design. The system worked. After 14 years of waiting, after months of construction, after legal battles and sabotage, and a storm that nearly killed someone, Raymond Carlisle's water pump worked exactly as he designed it. Hank put his hand on the pipe, felt the vibration of flowing water. Ray would be proud. Travis thought about that, about pride and legacy and what it meant to finish someone else's work. Raymond had died alone, thinking he'd failed. But he hadn't failed. He just needed help, needed community, needed someone willing to carry the work forward when he couldn't. "I hope so," Travis said. They were celebrating at the pump station, taking photos, calling the other ranchers to tell them the system was operational, when a black Mercedes pulled up. Maggie Whitfield climbed out. She looked different, tired, less put together than usual. She walked toward the group slowly, like she was approaching something that might bite. "I heard you nearly died," she said to Travis. "News travels fast." "It's a small community." She looked at the pump station, at the equipment, at the evidence of months of work. "Can I see it? The system working?" Travis studied her, looking for the angle, the trap, the strategy. But all he saw was a woman who looked lost. "Why?" "Because it was my father's design. Because I need to see if he was right." Travis nodded to Connor. "Show her." They walked Maggie through the whole system, from the spring intake to the pump chamber to the delivery pipes to the storage tank. Showed her how water flowed uphill powered by nothing but gravity. Explained the mechanics, the efficiency, the long-term sustainability. Connor did most of the talking, his engineer's mind able to articulate the brilliance of Raymond's design. Maggie listened without interrupting, watched water flow, put her hand on the pump housing, felt it vibrating with each cycle, and something in her face cracked. The professional mask fell away, leaving something raw and painful. "He was right," she said quietly. "My father, he was right and I was wrong." No one spoke. Wind moved through the pines. The pump kept its steady rhythm. "After he died, I found letters," Maggie continued. 312 letters, one every month for 26 years. He'd mail them to my office. I never opened them, just threw them away. But after he died, I couldn't stop thinking about them, about what they might have said. So I went through his house, found the copies he'd kept, read every single one." She was crying now, not bothering to hide it. "Every letter apologized for not being there when my mother was dying, for choosing his work over our family, for letting me down. Every letter said he loved me. Every letter described this system, how it would help people, how it would prove that resources should be shared, not hoarded, how it would change everything. I thought he was crazy, thought his obsession with inventions had destroyed our family. So I took the money he left me and built a company that did exactly the opposite of what he wanted. Took water, turned it into profit. Proved his way didn't work, that business and power were what mattered." Maggie looked at Travis. "But I was wrong. I built a company that hurts people, That squeezes them for money they don't have. That turns basic necessities into commodities. I became exactly what my father fought against. And I did it to prove I didn't need him, to show him his dreams were worthless. But his dreams weren't worthless. This system works. It's brilliant. It's everything he said it would be. And I spent my whole life fighting it because I was too angry to see he was trying to help people, not abandon me. Travis felt something shift. This was the daughter Raymond had written about, the girl in the photographs, still there under the layers of hurt and anger and professional armor, still capable of seeing truth when it was demonstrated clearly enough. "What are you going to do?" Travis asked. Maggie was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. I have a company, investors, contracts, employees. I can't just walk away, but I can't keep doing this. Can't keep being the thing my father fought. Can't keep hurting people in his name." "Then change," Lily said. Everyone turned to look at her. She stepped forward, facing Maggie. "You built a company. You can rebuild it different. Use your resources to help people instead of controlling them. My father was broke and broken when he came here, but he chose to finish your father's work instead of selling the land for profit. You have more resources than we'll ever have. Use them." "It's not that simple." "It never is, but you're standing here because you wanted to see if your father was right. Well, he was right. The system works. The question is whether you're brave enough to admit it, brave enough to change." Maggie looked at Lily for a long moment, then at the pump station, at the water flowing uphill, at the physical proof that her father's vision had been sound. "I need time," she said, "to think, to figure out what's possible." She walked back to her Mercedes, climbed in, drove away, left them standing in the snow, uncertain what had just happened or what it meant. "Think she'll change?" Connor asked. Travis watched the Mercedes disappear. "I don't know. People don't always get redemption. Sometimes they just get clarity, understanding what they've become. Whether they change, that's up to them." "Ray never got to reconcile with her," Hank said. "Died hoping she'd understand. Maybe this is as close as he gets. Her seeing the system work, knowing he was right." They stood in the cold November afternoon, the pump thumping its steady rhythm, water flowing uphill like it had been flowing for millions of years, just waiting for human ingenuity to harness it. Raymond's design, Connor's welding, Travis's stonework, the community's labor, all of it coming together into something that would outlast them all. Lily put her arm around Travis. "You almost died for this." "I know. Was it worth it?" Travis thought about Raymond dying alone, about Connor selling his truck, about Hank and the others risking Maggie's lawsuits, about Lily deferring college, about all the small and large sacrifices people made when they believed in something bigger than themselves. "Ask me in 50 years," he said, "when this system is still running, when people don't remember our names but still drink clean water, when the work outlasts the workers, then I'll know if it was worth it." The sun was setting over the Bighorn Mountains, painting the snow orange and pink. The pump kept its rhythm. The water kept flowing. And in the gathering darkness, Travis Garrett understood finally what Raymond Carlisle had known all along. Legacy wasn't about being remembered. It was about building things that helped people you'd never meet, about finishing work that outlasted your life, about proving that community and craft and shared knowledge mattered more than individual profit. Raymond had died believing he'd failed, but standing here, watching his system work exactly as designed, Travis knew the truth. Raymond hadn't failed. He just needed time, needed someone to finish what he'd started, needed the patience to let his legacy unfold in its own time. That patience had taken 14 years, but it had been worth the wait. The water flowed on, cold and clear, powered by gravity and human ingenuity. And somewhere in whatever place dead dreamers went, Raymond Carlisle could finally rest, knowing his work had mattered, knowing someone had cared enough to finish it, knowing his daughter had finally seen he'd been trying to help, not abandon. The work was almost done. One more part to go, the completion, the proof that legacy once built could change everything. But tonight they rested, tomorrow they'd finish. The first water reached Hank Kimball's ranch on December 3rd, a Tuesday morning so cold the breath froze in the air. Travis and Connor made the final connection, threading the distribution line into Hank's existing plumbing system. When they opened the valve, water flowed. Clean, cold, powered by nothing but gravity and Raymond Carlisle's 40-year-old design. Hank stood at his kitchen sink, turned on the faucet, watched water pour out. He filled a glass, drank it slowly, set the glass down with shaking hands. "First time in 6 years I've had running water without paying Whitfield for it," he said. His voice was rough. Ray would have loved to see this. They made 5 more connections over the next week. David and Lynn Huang's place, the Chen family ranch, old Jessup's property, the Madsen farm. Connor Wells, who'd been staying in Hank's bunkhouse, got a small cabin on the edge of Travis's land with its own water tap. Each connection was a small ceremony. Each ranch owner turning on their faucet for the first time, seeing Raymond's vision made real. By mid-December, the 6-ranch network was complete and operational. The system worked exactly as Raymond had designed. The spring flowed constantly, feeding the pump chamber. The hydraulic ram cycled its steady rhythm, pushing water uphill to the storage tank. From there, gravity distributed water to each property. No electricity, no monthly fees, no dependence on Maggie Whitfield's monopoly. The community organized a dedication ceremony for the Saturday before Christmas. They gathered at Travis's ranch, maybe 60 people crowding into the clearing despite the cold. Someone had set up folding tables with coffee and homemade cookies. Kids ran around in the snow while adults stood in clusters, talking, laughing, celebrating. Travis had worked through the previous night to finish one final element. A bronze plaque, cast by a metal worker in Billings who donated his services after hearing about the project. The plaque bore Raymond's name, his dates, and a simple inscription that Lily had written. "He dreamed it, we built it, his legacy flows on." They mounted the plaque on a stone post Travis had built near the pump station. River rock, carefully selected and fitted, mortared with the same lime-based formula Raymond had used on the cabin foundation. The post was solid, meant to last, meant to tell whoever came after that someone had cared enough to build something permanent. Hank spoke first. He stood beside the plaque, one weathered hand resting on the stone, looking at the names of people gathered around him. Friends and neighbors and strangers who'd become community through shared work. "I knew Ray Carlisle for 40 years, Hank said. Watched him build this place with his own hands. Watched him design this water system piece by piece, year by year. Watched him die thinking he'd failed because he couldn't finish it alone." The old rancher's voice cracked. He paused, composed himself. But Ray didn't fail. He just needed help, needed community. And Travis here, he gave Ray what Ray needed, not because he knew him, not because he owed him anything, but because the work mattered, because finishing what someone else started is how we honor the dead, how we show that their lives meant something. "This system is going to serve our families for generations, our kids, our grandkids. People who will never know Ray's name will drink clean water because he spent 40 years figuring out how to make it work. That's legacy. That's what lasts. Not money or property or success. The work that helps people after you're gone." Pastor Frank spoke next, offering a blessing over the system and the community that had built it. Then others shared stories. Jessup talked about watching Ray experiment with early prototypes in the 80s. Lin Huang described what it meant to her family to have reliable water, how it changed their ability to make the ranch work. Connor talked about learning that redemption was possible, that mistakes could be unmade through service. When it came to Travis's turn, he almost declined. Public speaking had never been comfortable. But Lily nudged him forward, and he found himself standing beside the plaque, looking at the faces of people who'd trusted him to finish what Raymond started. "I came here broke and broken," Travis said. "Had $5,000 and no future beyond that. Bought this ranch because I had nowhere else to go. Found Raymond's journals and thought maybe I could finish what he'd started. Thought maybe building something that mattered would be enough, would make up for all the things I'd failed at." He looked at Lily. "But I learned something. The building matters. The work matters, but not as much as the people you build it with, not as much as the community you serve. Raymond died alone because he chose his work over his relationships. I almost made the same mistake. Almost lost my daughter chasing the same obsession." So this plaque isn't just about Raymond. It's about everyone here. Everyone who dug trenches and laid pipe and welded connections and kept working when it would have been easier to quit. Everyone who believed that community could beat corporations, that craft and knowledge mattered more than profit. You're the legacy, not the pump. You. After the ceremony, people stayed for hours, drinking coffee, sharing food, telling stories. The temperature dropped as afternoon turned to evening, but no one seemed to notice. This was what community felt like. Not just neighbors helping neighbors, but something deeper. Shared purpose, collective achievement, the understanding that they'd built something together that none of them could have built alone. Travis spent Christmas with Lily at the ranch. She'd invited her mother and Greg, but they'd declined. Too rural, too rustic, too far from the kind of holiday they preferred. So it was just the two of them, cooking a small turkey on the wood stove, exchanging simple gifts, watching snow fall through the clean windows of the cabin Travis had repaired. "Mom says I should move back to Billings for spring semester," Lily said. They were sitting by the fire, full from dinner, comfortable in the quiet. "Says I'm wasting my scholarship opportunity staying out here." "What do you want to do?" "I want to keep helping. The system's operational, but people are already asking about expansion. Other ranchers want to connect. We could build the 20-ranch network Ray designed, make this bigger than just our valley." Travis looked at his daughter. She was 17, nearly 18 now, grown in ways that had nothing to do with age. Working on the water system had changed her, given her confidence, purpose, a sense that she could solve problems instead of just studying them. "College matters," Travis said. "Engineering degree will give you tools we don't have, knowledge about hydraulics and materials and design that I can't teach you." "I know, and I'm going, but not yet. I deferred admission for a year. Montana State accepted it. I'll start next fall, but this year I want to help expand the system, want to learn by doing instead of just reading. Is that okay?" Travis felt pride and worry mixed together. Pride that his daughter wanted to continue the work. Worry that she was delaying her education, limiting her options. But he remembered his own life at 18. The choices he'd made, the paths he'd taken. Some had worked out, most hadn't, but they'd all taught him something. "It's your choice," he said. "Your life. I trust you to know what's right for you." "Thanks, Dad." They sat watching the fire burn down to embers. Outside, the pump station maintained its steady rhythm, pushing water uphill through the cold Montana night. The sound had become part of the ranch's background now. Constant, reliable, the heartbeat of Raymond's legacy. January brought a letter from Maggie Whitfield's attorney. High Plains Development was selling its water rights holdings and discontinuing operations in Powder River County. The company's assets were being liquidated. Maggie herself was leaving Montana, relocating to Seattle where she'd accepted a position with an environmental nonprofit. The letter was formal, impersonal, but included a personal note in Maggie's handwriting. She was donating $50,000 to establish the Carlisle Water Trust, a nonprofit dedicated to helping rural communities build sustainable water systems. The donation was anonymous. She requested no recognition, no publicity, just wanted the money to further her father's work. Travis shared the letter with Hank. The old rancher read it twice, then folded it carefully and handed it back. "Think she found peace?" Travis asked. "Don't know about peace, but maybe understanding. Maybe that's all any of us get, understanding what we've become and trying to do better." Ray never got to reconcile with her. No, but she saw his system work, saw he was right, that's something. Maybe not what he wanted, but something. Travis thought about that, about how rarely we got the endings we wanted, how often we had to settle for small mercies, partial resolutions, the quiet acknowledgement that we'd tried even if we hadn't fully succeeded. Raymond had died estranged from his daughter, but his work had shown her the truth eventually. That was legacy of a different kind, not reconciliation but vindication. The expansion started in February. 9 additional ranches wanted to connect to the system. Travis used Raymond's advanced blueprints, the version 2 design for community-scale infrastructure. With the money from the Carlisle Water Trust and contributions from new participants, they had resources to build properly, to scale up the way Raymond had envisioned. Connor took the lead on construction. The young man had learned fast, absorbed knowledge through his hands the way good craftsmen do. He hired 3 other workers, all young people from the valley who needed jobs and were willing to learn. They became a crew, moving from property to property, installing connections, training ranch owners on maintenance, spreading the knowledge the way Raymond had always intended. Lily managed logistics, ordering materials, coordinating schedules, handling the paperwork. She'd become indispensable, the organizational mind that kept dozens of moving parts synchronized. Travis watched her work with quiet amazement. His daughter, who'd been distant and skeptical 8 months ago, now running a construction project that served 15 ranches and was growing. Travis focused on what he did best: stone work. He built pump stations and distribution hubs, crafting river rock foundations that would last generations. Each post, each chamber, each structural element built with the care Raymond had taught through his journals and his example. This was craft as prayer, work as worship, building things meant to outlast the builder. March brought a documentary filmmaker from Missoula. She'd heard about the Carlisle system, wanted to film it for a series about rural innovation and community resilience. Travis was reluctant at first, uncomfortable with cameras and attention, but Lily convinced him. "People need to see this works," she said. "Need to know that communities can solve their own problems, that they don't have to depend on corporations that profit from their needs." So Travis let the filmmaker follow them for 2 weeks. She filmed the pump stations, interviewed community members, documented the expansion work. She recorded Hank talking about Raymond, Connor explaining the hydraulics, Jessup describing what it meant to have reliable water after years of paying monopoly prices. The film aired in May, part of a PBS series on rural America. The response was overwhelming. Calls and emails from communities across Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, North Dakota. Small towns and ranching areas where water access had become controlled by companies, where monthly fees were crushing family budgets. Everyone wanted to know if the Carlisle system could work for them. Travis, Connor, and Lily became consultants. They traveled to a community, assess the water sources, study the topography, determine if a hydraulic ram pump system was feasible. If it was, they'd provide Raymond's blueprints, teach the basics, help communities organize their own construction efforts. They charged nothing for the consultation. Just ask that communities document their builds and share knowledge with others. By summer, 17 communities were building Carlisle systems. The knowledge was spreading the way Raymond had wanted, freely shared, adapted to local conditions, proven through demonstration rather than imposed through authority. Travis's life had transformed in ways he couldn't have imagined a year earlier. The ranch was no longer abandoned. The cabin was tight and warm, expanded with a new addition Connor had helped build. The workshop was active, tools in constant use. The land that had seemed like a desperate last gamble now felt like home. But more than the physical changes, Travis had found purpose. Not just in finishing Raymond's work, but in passing on knowledge. He'd started teaching basic masonry to local teenagers. Kids from ranching families who wanted to learn trades, who understood that building things with your hands was valuable even in a world increasingly dominated by screens and services. Lily started Montana State in the fall, studying civil engineering with a focus on sustainable infrastructure. But she came home every weekend, bringing what she learned in class and applying it to the systems they were building. Theory meeting practice. Academic knowledge grounded in real-world application. Connor's construction crew had grown to 8 people. They were booked 6 months out, traveling across 3 states installing Carlisle systems. The young man who'd sold his truck and depleted his savings had become a small business owner, teaching others the skills Travis had taught him. The debt was still there, would take years to pay off, but Connor was managing it now instead of drowning in it. On a Saturday in early October, Travis drove to the cemetery outside Forsyth where Raymond was buried. He'd been meaning to do this for months, but work had always intervened. Today, though, with autumn colors blazing across the mountains and the air crisp with the promise of coming winter, the timing felt right. Raymond's grave was in a corner of the cemetery, under a ponderosa pine. The original headstone was simple, just his name and dates. Travis had brought a replacement, carved from Montana granite by a stonecutter in Billings who donated his work after seeing the documentary. The new headstone was larger, substantial. It bore Raymond's name and dates, but also an inscription: engineer, inventor, friend. The water still flows. Travis set the new stone in place himself, using techniques Raymond had documented in his journals. Mixed mortar to the right consistency. Set the stone level and plumb. Made sure it would stand for 100 years, 200, however long granite lasted in Montana weather. Lily had come with him. She placed wildflowers at the base of the stone, then stepped back to stand beside her father. "Do you think he knows," she asked, "that the system works, that people are using his designs?" "I don't know what happens after we die, but I think the work continues whether we're here to see it or not. That's what legacy means. Building things that outlast you, helping people you'll never meet." They stood in the quiet cemetery, wind moving through the pine branches overhead. Travis thought about the year that had passed since he'd bought the ranch for his last $5,000. Thought about finding Raymond's journals and blueprints. About deciding to finish what a stranger had started. About all the people who'd helped, all the obstacles overcome, all the small victories that had accumulated into something transformative. "I'm glad you came here," Lily said. "Glad you bought this place. Glad you chose to finish what Ray started instead of selling to Whitfield." "Me too." "Are you happy, Dad?" The question surprised him. Travis thought about happiness, about whether he'd describe what he felt as happy. It was more complicated than that. Satisfaction, maybe. Purpose. The sense of having done something worthwhile, but also awareness of how easily it could have gone differently. How close he'd come to giving up, to dying in that blizzard, to losing his daughter's respect. "I'm content," he said finally. "I'm building things that matter, teaching people who want to learn, making sure Raymond's knowledge doesn't die with him. That's enough. That's more than I had a year ago." They walked back to the truck. Travis took one last look at the new headstone, at the words carved in granite. "The water still flows. Simple truth. Permanent record. Raymond's life reduced to its essence, and that essence was service, was helping, was building systems that freed people instead of controlling them." The ranch was busy when they returned. A group from a community in Idaho had come to learn about the system. Travis spent the afternoon showing them the pump station, explaining the mechanics, walking them through Raymond's blueprints. They took notes, asked questions, photographed everything. By evening, they understood enough to start planning their own build. This was happening more and more. Communities sending representatives to learn. Travis, Connor, and Lily teaching what they knew. The knowledge spreading like water, finding its level, flowing from high places to low places, seeking equilibrium. That evening, Travis sat in the workshop writing in a journal of his own. He'd started this practice months ago, following Raymond's example, documenting not just the technical details of the builds but the human stories, the challenges, the solutions, the people who made it work, creating a record for whoever came after. The journal entry for October 14th, 1 year and 1 day after he'd first arrived at the ranch, read: "The Carlisle system now serves 23 ranches in Powder River County. 17 additional systems are under construction across Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. Connor's crew is training local builders in each community, ensuring the knowledge spreads and adapts to local conditions. Lily is applying engineering principles she's learning at Montana State to improve the designs, making them more efficient while staying true to Raymond's core concepts. I'm teaching masonry to 8 teenagers. Most will probably never become professional masons, but they'll know how to work with stone, how to build foundations that last. That knowledge matters. Skills matter. The ability to make things with your hands instead of just consuming what others make." Maggie Whitfield sold her company and left Montana. I don't know if she found peace with her father's memory, but she saw his system work, saw he was right. Sometimes that's all we get, not reconciliation but acknowledgement. "This ranch that I bought for almost nothing has become something I couldn't have imagined. Not just a home, but a center for teaching and learning. A place where Raymond's vision continues to unfold. A foundation, literally and figuratively, for work that will outlast me. I almost died building this. Connor sacrificed his savings. Lily deferred her education. Dozens of people invested time and money and faith. Was it worth it? Ask the families who no longer pay $800 a month for water. Ask the communities building their own systems. Ask the kids learning that they can solve problems instead of just accepting them." Raymond died thinking he'd failed, but he didn't fail. He just needed time, needed help, needed a community willing to finish what he started. "I was broke and desperate when I found this place. Now I'm building a legacy, not mine, Raymond's, ours, the collective work of people who believe some things matter more than money. The water still flows, that's what matters. The water still flows." Travis closed the journal, set it on the shelf alongside Raymond's volumes. 40 years of one man's work, 1 year of another's, both documenting the same truth. That craft mattered. That knowledge freely shared multiplied instead of diminished. That communities could solve problems when they worked together. That legacy wasn't about what you kept but what you gave away. Outside, the October night was clear and cold. Stars emerged in the darkening sky, the same stars Raymond had watched for 42 years, the same stars that would still be burning long after everyone alive today was dust. The pump station maintained its rhythm, water flowing uphill powered by gravity and human ingenuity. Constant, reliable, built to last. Lily knocked on the workshop door, stuck her head in. Group from Wyoming just called. They want to visit next week, learn about the system. Tell them to come. And there's a newspaper reporter asking for an interview. Something about innovative rural infrastructure solutions. Travis almost said no. Then remembered the documentary, how it had helped spread knowledge to communities that needed it. Remembered that visibility served Raymond's vision of freely shared information. Tell them okay, but make clear we're not the story. The system is the story. Raymond's design is what matters. Lily smiled. I'll make that clear. After she left, Travis walked outside. The cold bit at his face sharp and clean. He walked to the pump station, put his hand on the housing, felt it vibrating with each cycle. Thump, thump, thump. The heartbeat of Raymond's legacy. The proof that one person's careful work, preserved and passed on, could change dozens of lives, hundreds, eventually thousands. He thought about the community's building systems across 3 states, about the knowledge spreading, adapting, evolving, about Connor teaching others what Travis had taught him, about Lily learning engineering so she could improve the designs, about all the ways Raymond's vision was growing beyond anything the old man could have imagined. This was legacy, not monuments or wealth or fame, but work that helped people, knowledge that spread, systems that freed communities from dependence on corporations that profited from basic necessities. Raymond had understood that, had spent 40 years documenting, designing, refining, had left everything in place for someone to finish, had trusted that the right person would find the ranch and care enough to complete the work. Travis had been that person, broke and desperate and looking for second chances, had found Raymond's journals and chosen to honor a stranger's dream instead of taking the easy profit, had convinced his daughter and his community to help, had nearly died in the effort, had seen the system work, seen it spread, seen it prove that Raymond had been right all along. Winter would come soon. The ground would freeze, but the water would keep flowing, heated enough by its journey through the pump to avoid freezing in the pipes. Through cold and snow and the brutal Montana winter, Raymond's system would keep working, would keep proving that good design, properly built, outlasted everything. Travis walked back to the cabin. Light glowed in the windows. Lily was inside, probably working on logistics for next week's visitors. His daughter, who'd been distant and skeptical a year ago, now fully committed to spreading Raymond's vision. That was legacy too. Knowledge passing from Raymond to Travis to Lily to the next generation. An unbroken chain of learning and building and caring enough to finish what others started. He paused at the door, looked back at the clearing, the pump station, the workshop, the cabin with its perfect foundation, the land Raymond had bought for $900 in 1966 and turned into a laboratory for sustainable living, the place Travis had bought for $4,800 in desperation and turned into a center for teaching community resilience. 57 years between Raymond's purchase and Travis's, 14 years between Raymond's death and the system's completion. Time moved slow when you were building things meant to last, but that was okay. Legacy wasn't about speed. It was about permanence, about creating things that would still matter 50 years from now, 100 years, long after everyone alive today was forgotten. The water would still flow. That's what Raymond had written in his final journal. That's what Travis understood now. The water would still flow. The work would continue. The knowledge would spread. And somewhere in whatever place dead dreamers went, Raymond Carlisle could rest knowing his life had mattered, knowing someone had cared enough to finish what he'd started, knowing his daughter had finally understood he'd been trying to help people, not abandon her. Travis opened the cabin door, stepped into warmth and light. Tomorrow there would be more work, more communities to teach, more systems to build, more knowledge to share. But tonight he would sit with his daughter and plan and dream and understand that he was exactly where he needed to be. doing exactly what he was meant to do, finishing work that would outlast him, building legacy one stone, one pipe, one connection at a time. The water flowed on, cold and clear, powered by gravity and human ingenuity, serving families who would never know Raymond's name but would drink clean water because he'd spent 40 years figuring out how to make it work. That was legacy. That was what lasted. Not money or property or success measured in conventional terms, but the quiet knowledge that you'd built something that helped people, that you'd finished what you'd started, that your work mattered. Travis Garrett understood that now. Understood it in his bones, in his hands, in the scars and calluses that mapped a life spent working with stone and wood and water. He'd come to Montana broke and broken, had found Raymond's ranch and Raymond's journals and Raymond's vision, had chosen to finish what a stranger started simply because the work needed doing. And in finishing that work, he'd found what he'd been looking for all along, not success or wealth or recognition, but purpose, community, the understanding that legacy wasn't about what you accomplished in your lifetime. It was about what you made possible for the people who came after, about building foundations that would support walls you'd never see, about finishing work that would outlast you and everyone you knew. The water flowed on. The pump maintained its rhythm. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns, and in a small cabin in the Montana mountains, a father and daughter planned tomorrow's work, carrying forward a vision that had started before they were born and would continue long after they were gone. That was enough, more than enough. That was everything.